Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another episode of the Third Fleet Podcast. This is episode 31, and today I'm here with Gaijin Hunter and a special guest, Shepard. How are you doing, sir?
Awesome. Great to be here with you guys. Could be a really good time. Lots of good Monster Hunter news. We're kind of in this interesting valley where the sunset of Rise has started, but the new sunrise for Stories 2 is coming up. So I think there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Probably a good time to reflect on Rise in general.
Yes.
And just talk about where Capcom is and looking at where they're going and things like that.
Well, starting out with word plays and puns is a perfect at-home way to start the Third Fleet Podcast. So I'm super excited you're here. I don't know if I've ever gotten the chance to tell you this to your face, so to say.
Here we go.
But you are the inspiration on why I even started doing guides on YouTube. And that was way back in Monster Hunter 3G. I was really enjoying the game and writing stuff up, and then I saw your videos where you were doing somewhat like quasi tutorials at the base camp of the Tundra. And I never thought about I've done written guides, I've done forums, and you make your own like FAQ guides, and I've done that.
You have your cool ASCII art.
Oh yeah, and little asterisks all over, and nice little formatting and fonts and stuff. And then I never thought about how that kind of stuff works in video form. And so that was the first time I was exposed to it, and it was really enjoyable. And that was implanted in the back of my head. You should try some. This seems really, I mean, it was fun to watch your videos. So thank you for being my inspiration.
No, I mean, you're welcome. I mean, I'll go ahead, Rurikhan.
I was going to ask if it was at around that point that you picked up your 3DS and you went to the place in Hakihabara and had it modded to get a video output so that you could start.
It was all around. Actually, no, it was. So watching your videos inspired me to start writing my own guides. I was still very apprehensive and I don't know anything about video. I don't know anything about making stuff, and I thought that was well beyond me. So, but it got me thinking about the tutorial, and there's so much information, but when you actually know it, you're like, no, this is super simplistic. But then when you hear it from someone else, you're like, it all just feels very different, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. How do I, shift around the information in an order in which it makes sense for me? And then you write out a guide and you read it, and you're like, maybe other people who think like me will be able to connect with this. And then it just all came together. And then when I had the chance to get it modded, and there was a weird Humble Bumble sale with Camtasia.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I got it really cheap. I was like, it is time. And then I decided to go out of my comfort zone, and the rest is history. So
yeah. Well, I mean, people learn in a lot of different ways. You or I could probably sit down and look at some Lord Graf game fact on Freedom Unite, and he could be talking about some algebraic formula on how the damage formula stuff, and that may work for us, but there's going to be a lot of people out there that they're going to start looking at parentheses and multiplication, and their eyes are just going to glaze over.
Hey, here's a weird question I want to ask. Do you guys have this where I do a video or I'm talking about basic calculations, right? And it's only multiplication,
usually,
and addition,
yeah,
basically. And people are like, "Oh my god, math, my head hurts." I'm like, multiplication, guys. And I don't know if it's a dad moment, but I'm kind of like, this is not complicated. Trust me.
Basic algebra, right? I mean, I remember learning algebra, or the very basics of it, probably fourth or fifth grade, I guess.
Yeah,
around there.
I think
get your A and B solving. I don't know what it is nowadays.
I think the reasoning behind that is because even back when I went to school, which, I mean, we're all around the same age, I would imagine. But even back when I went to school in Portugal, I was like, the education system is hot garbage. It is so incredibly bad. Because what we end up getting here is a lot of times you get teachers that they quite simply couldn't make it in whatever area they wanted to go to. So instead of doing what they wanted to do, they end up teaching. So I got so many of those. All of the good teachers that I've had throughout my entire academic career, I could probably count them all on one hand, the good ones. So there's not that many good teachers out there. And I still, I tried hard and I went to like extra tutoring and whatnot so that I would really be at least decent at some of these things. So like, yeah, I know the maths, I know the parentheses, multiplications, divisions, all that stuff. And even like friggin', how do you say them in English? Equations, all of that stuff, right? But if you assume that since we've been through there, it was already pretty bad when we went there, right? At least for me it was. I don't know about you guys. Since then, it's probably gotten even worse. So some of the people that
I think so. At least here, there's the whole No Child Left Behind, which basically means we're not going to fail you for anything, or you might really need to be held back a year, and we're not going to. So go out there and good luck. I would assume it's good in Japan, Gaijin, right? I mean, I would assume.
It's hardcore. I mean, like what these like Yuna just finished her first. Apparently, I don't know. This is so stupid. So this country is obsessed with studying for tests. And so instead of just doing like a small 1-page test every, at the end of every chapter, they do like the end of period quests. So it was a full week of nonstop 50-minute test periods, like the SATs basically.
That sounds very stressful.
It's super stressful. The parents are stressful and the kids. I wasn't. I told her, this is your first time, so just do it and figure out what you're weak in. Like, I don't care what your score is. And so she didn't really study for it. And it kind of showed. But the thing is like, they're so mentally exhausted if they didn't study specifically for the test, because it takes a good 50 minutes to read all the questions, because there's like 4 pages of stuff. It's hardcore, really tough. Like, we're talking stuff I did in high school, and she's in 7th grade. And this is like 9th, 10th grade stuff. And it's just like, I couldn't pass this test even if I tried. And so it was just kind of like, wow, that's hardcore. Like the problem here in Japan is that they have too many students. I know everyone's like, oh, but isn't there a shortage of children?
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, that's the perception, is that there's a declining
not
population.
in Tokyo.
Well, I guess
So
that's
I think
maybe it's just a high population density and not enough teachers for
yeah.
it.
So her class is 38 people right now, and that's way too many for one school.
God, holy
Jesus
crap.
Christ.
Yeah.
Just may as well put them all in a lecture room of 300 students.
I know, right? And then she's got the problem where she's sandwiched between 2 assholes, like 2 boys and 3 or 4 boys that are all just, at that age, they're all just cracking jokes during class and being assholes, and the teacher can't handle it. And so she's like sitting in the middle. So she's constantly feeling like she's being stared at because they're all like looking over her to each other and making jokes. And so she can't even focus in class. And so I'm going to bitch to the teacher about that when we have this parent-teacher one-on-ones coming up.
Are pretty serious, right? I mean, I think it's pretty well enforced over there. You have a seat, I think.
Well, you have a seat, and then they have you pull apparently like a lottery. They change seats once a month.
Oh, okay.
And then
so this is
but it's done randomly. So it's a bad month. So I was like, well, if they're going to change it soon, that's good. So let's see what happens. But I am going to bitch to the teacher and say, look, I feel really bad for you. Like, that's too many kids, and kids at that age has got to be a stressful thing. And I was like, but maybe if there's problems, like maybe doing lotteries is not the best way. Maybe teacher says I randomly did it and here it is, and behind the scenes you were actually thinking about where to put the problem kids in the back, and the kids are eager to learn in the front. And I'm going to make that suggestion. But I was just going to say and I was just going to say, like, if you're a listener to the podcast, teachers are not appreciated and loved enough in this world. So if you have a good teacher, tell them that you appreciate them. Seriously, because they're working their asses off for crap pay, and a good teacher can affect you for the rest of your life. So I would say, let your good teachers know that you appreciate them. I think it'll go a long way.
But yeah, the point that I was trying to make, we kind of got veered off, was that I figure that since we've been at the school, it's probably gotten even worse, which leads to, people, they just see math and they just end up hating it because, probably they're not getting taught by the best teachers. And so they end up hating it, which kind of sucks, because ultimately, I don't think the math is necessarily a bad subject. Is just one of those things that you either have good teachers or you have bad teachers. And if you have bad teachers, you're going to hate it forever. And it's going to impact your professional life.
And even if you know
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. As long, even if you know it, it may not be fun. Like, you may work a long week. You got a couple hours Friday night to play the game. You want to know what the good weapon is. You don't want to pull out
Yeah.
your freaking calculator on your phone and be like, well, if the motion value on this attack is this, this monster takes 20% fire damage on the head if I were to use this weapon. Like people just, I mean, some people, it's not a fun part of the game for them. They just want to hit the monster.
Yeah. I have a much more casual approach, and like I know that when you're doing like Olympic speed running, like that kind, like every little bit matters. But I was gonna say, if you need to bust out Excel or calculators to see which one is better, it means both of them are probably pretty darn good. So I'd say for the most people, I think over worry about it. I think they're just like,
I just
if it looks good and you just play it.
I rarely do ILs. I like full game speedrunning Monster Hunter, especially Monster Hunter World. But to be honest with you, Gaijin, like you could really get into the math and stuff doing like the individual levels, but I've just never found that to either be super fun content to do on my own. Or certainly it's not good. I don't think this people are gonna hate me for this. I don't think it's good content to stream either. Because like how unsatisfying is it to watch a guy run into a room, pull up a monster, get hit 2 minutes in, and then abandon?
And quit.
Like there's like no satisfaction in that whatsoever.
I mean,
actually, it was funny. I was talking to Yuna about this because Yuna's been watching speed runs and enjoying them as well, and she comes at it at the same perspective that I do. Is that it's just fun, and we're looking for that, and it's not reproducible at our level. Like we'll watch it, we're like, I'm not going to attempt that. But there's always like there's about one or two tricks you can go like, oh, I didn't realize during that move you could just move to the left and you're cool. Like there's always something interesting you can learn that you could incorporate into your style. But even she was like, I said, "What, are you interested in getting into speedrunning?" She's like,
hell
no.
yeah.
She said no because she says, you know, what's the fun if you have it locked down to a script? One, quitting out she hates, and two, once you have it down to a script, she's like, I like Monster Hunter because it's dynamic. Like I don't know what the monster's gonna do, and it goes off rails, and that's the fun part for me. So she's like, I wouldn't, you know, like we did a few like Hame runs with bow guns, and she's like, yeah, that felt pretty good. You know, being able to lock down a monster and kill it in 2 minutes. So she's like, but I don't feel like doing that again.
It's not fun. It's not that fun to do. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like it's okay if you're just going to do it a couple times, but if like that's your existence,
get your frustrations out, you know.
But like, you know, is Rise now just like, you know, visit the Melder as quickly as possible? Like that's not enjoyable. Like you play the game, like at a certain point, like, you know, you have to do some grinding to get some good gear, but is the entire game about min-maxing getting a talisman, or when are you actually going to fight the monster, right? Yeah, and if it's fully scripted, have you really fought it, or are you just executing a script?
Yeah. So I think, like you were saying, the way we all enjoy our games are very different. So I guess that makes a lot of sense with the whole math thing. It's just, I just find it funny where I'm like, as long as you know the order, as long as you know the order of operations, and you know multiplication and division, that's everything in Monster Hunter. So that, and you could throw away decimals, which is nice.
The rounding can sometimes be weird. The rounding is sometimes weird in the math because sometimes it absolutely rounds down and sometimes it rounds properly, and that's annoying to calculate. But the nice thing is, like in the previous games, you would never know that, and you didn't have to worry.
And you didn't have the training room and the damage numbers. So I'm like, my job is done. I don't have to. They're like, why don't you do motion values? I'm like, I don't need to anymore. The head of the frog is 100%. You hit it, and you're going to get a pure, blissful, accurate description of how much damage that move generally does against a good part. So I was like,
where the training pool was what 80% in world? I think it was like 70 or 80%.
Yeah, it was
weird number because like there's almost nothing with like 80% as a motion as a raw hit zone. I don't think.
Oh yeah,
probably
it's still actually even the Toadversary though is a little confusing in that it's got like a 30% elemental zone, which is like almost non-existent in the game.
It's very rare. Yeah,
you're not getting 30% element on every hit, so it's like you use it as reference, but it's not a pure guide of what you're going to be. Like the best reference is just go and do it, like see how it feels.
The chest is sometimes averages out a little bit like some things heads because I think was it like 60 or 70% raw and then 15% element, which is pretty close to a monster's head in general. But yeah, it makes you wonder why there's even a head on the Toadversary, other than just knowing the true absolute comparison between different numbers.
Yeah. It can also be used for you to get an idea of how long it would take you to stun something, maybe, or how long it would take you to parry something with a different
Yeah.
Although that's not, wouldn't need the head for that.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't hurt.
both me and Gaijin, the first time we ever kind of like played Monster Hunter was in the third generation. That's why it's the Third Fleet podcast. What was your first Monster Hunter?
So my first introduction to Monster Hunter, I was traveling internationally, and I was in Hong Kong at the time. I think I was in like the Mongkok district. There's like the shopping district. I was just passing through. And there's like, all right, don't make fun of me. All right, typical American. There's like a little McDonald's next to the place I was staying. I like the egg sandwiches there. Okay, kill me. All right, but they were tasty, and I
Hey,
didn't want to
McDonald's
eat.
in Asia, at least here in Japan, is
It
like
hits
it's not the
different.
same back.
Okay, you don't
Yeah.
understand. It hits different. They have a little bit more care to it. So, one day as I was walking in, I saw four guys sitting around one of the little tables, all with PSPs. At the time, I didn't have a PSP. I mean, I knew what it was, of course, and they were just looking like they were having the absolute time of their lives playing Monster Hunter. And at the time, they would have been playing probably just Monster Hunter Freedom, or it was probably Monster Hunter Portable, or whatever the Hong Kong release would have been. And then as I, walked around the city, I would occasionally go by a video game store because, again, tremendous nerd, and that's the sort of place I'd go to. And I'd see these huge cardboard displays of armor of the hunters and their armor, and I think I saw something like the size of an encyclopedia. And I don't even, I'm assuming it was like an unofficial Monster Hunter guide because even in Freedom, there was no way there was that much content in the game. But it left an impression on me, and so that would have been in like July or August. And so by that December or January, I picked up a PSP and a copy of, I guess it had to be Monster Hunter Freedom at the time. And I liked it. It was okay. I mean, I only played it solo. There was no easy way to play multiplayer. I used the great sword. I had a great time killing most things. Yan Garuga shows up, absolutely ruins my life. And like, I knew at the time if I was patient, I probably could have beaten him, and especially in retrospect, I know his health actually keeps going down. In the older games, elder-type monsters, or in this case, Yen Garuga, he's not an elder, but he was treated like an elder in the context of this quest, as you could repel him, and his life would keep going down and down and down. And I could have beaten him eventually. And yet, further later, I find out he's actually completely optional. You don't even technically need to fight him, as far as I know. You can actually just completely ignore him. But he's sitting there as you're urgent. You're like, you son of a bitch, purple monster, I'm going to take you out. Never did. Hard bounced off of that. Freedom 2 came out, did a lot better, got through high rank there. And I would say when it really hit was playing Freedom Unite. I think I maybe even imported Portable Second G, and I played that a lot as well. And hundreds, thousands of hours playing it and then replaying it and stuff like that. And that's the game that I really cut my teeth on. And then Try came out, and I guess the rest is history. The rest is documented on the internet, so you don't need to know anything about that. But everything prior to that, I mean, I just used to spend, like, I was getting my master's degree at the time, and I would go to the coffee shop on campus for like 5 or 6 hours at a time because I was sharing a car with my, I guess, was she my girlfriend then or my fiance? She's my wife now. And she would drop me off at the college campus in the morning, and I would get my work done, and then I would just play Monster Hunter for like 5 hours in this coffee shop. Got a lot of time in, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so like almost my entire history playing the game is solo, which is interesting because, obviously from Monster Hunter Try forward, a lot of people getting into the series, probably much more social hunters, right? Like you're just used to going into a hub and playing with other people. Not to say people don't play solo, but you always had that option of like asking for help and it being readily available. That being said, I did buy a PlayStation 3 as soon as Ad Hoc Party came out. Immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, thank God I could have somebody help me fight Elder Dragons with.
I was the same way with 3G. It was like when it came out for the Wii U, I was like, I don't care if this is the only game I ever buy for this machine. It's worth it.
Yes.
So
yes.
And it was just fun to finally go online. It was like, oh my gosh, this is different. But I still appreciate the solo experience because that's how I think a lot of us started.
Yeah. I mean, maybe many of us, but when you think about it, especially people that play Monster Hunter World, unless you know to not do it, you're getting dumped into public lobbies all the time.
Yep.
Like it's a very social game. And I would have.
It's interesting that it clicked for you almost the first time that you played it, because both for me and Gaijin it didn't. Like, we both bounced off hard. Like, my first one was Try, and I did not like it. I was like, I have no idea, this combat system sucks, this game is clunky. I hate, like, that was me because I went into Try and I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't get the loop. I was like, there's not even proper levels in this game. I'm going to it's the same map every time, and it has to
have 100 health.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like there's something
I
wrong
almost
with this
quit the game over in Arzuros. Okay, put it in context.
Rough. In 3G.
Yeah, I almost quit the game because of Arzuros.
That's rough.
It didn't click, and I didn't even know at that time.
That's a hard thing to admit. That's a powerful
the
moment.
Weapons that they I know and the weapons that they give you in the very beginning of the game are shit. They're like 50 attack, and you're not supposed to use those for hunting. You're supposed to go mine iron ore and then upgrade them to your first. I did not know that. So and there's no damage, so you wouldn't know. And Arzuros really. So I guess for you, is your sensei, so to say, your first large monster that taught you the ropes? Was it Yan Kuku, or who was it for you?
Yan Garuga.
Oh, no, I mean, I didn't have any issue up until Yan Garuga, because I made it up to at least that quest. Yeah.
Different breed of hunter.
And I mean, I had a hard time with them. I'm sure if I kept at it for a while, but I mean, things happen. I mean, I liked the game, but I couldn't play it with other people. And there was always plenty of other good games coming out then. I mean, there was a pretty good season. I had a DS and I had a PSP, so it wasn't like I was starved for video games. And as life goes on, you're like, all right, I'll try it later. Especially Freedom Unite. I believe that was the first game they give you a cat, and it wasn't very powerful. Although I think there was a hacked cat running around at one point.
Oh yeah, the hacked cats. I was gonna ask, like, what did they call that in the West? Because there's a very specific term in Japan that they call the cats, and it's like a demon cat or devil cat, and so people would hack the cat so that they would one hit kill, and then they would share them with each other. And
yeah, I never saw one of those, but the cat would help kill the minions, and would distract the minions, and sometimes the large monster if you needed to heal. I mean, it was such a anyway. I mean, I don't, I mean, it's not to be exclusionary, but especially pre Monster Hunter World, like healing was a moment. You had to plan it out, just like attacking a monster. Like, you had to know that the monster had just started an attack and would be far enough away from you that you'd be able to both drink and then finish your drinking animation, unless you're running like Speedy. Which is a fine skill to run in those games.
Oh yeah. Then people are like, why don't you just leave the area and heal and then come back? I'm like, have you ever entered in an area that there's a monster and you're gonna get your ass hit again? That's exactly what's gonna happen. And then you're gonna have to heal again.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, there's lots of strategies. I mean, of course, zoning is one of them. I mean, you could do it, especially if if you need to sharpen, if you need to heal, if you need to eat a steak, good time to maybe peace out a little bit. But just healing, I mean, you don't want to be, it's disruptive to the flow, and it's almost a little embarrassing having running away with your tail between your legs to heal. I mean, it's not fun. I mean, not to say that I haven't been there. There's this quest in Freedom Unite that's got 2 Lavazioth in the same area. And there's just this little line at the zone entrance, and they won't go farther than that. So they can't hit you physically, but they're both standing there shooting fireballs at you. So you run in, shoot them a little bit, they start to shoot the thing, you zone out.
Zone out, yeah.
It's embarrassing. It's a shameful moment. I would never do that again if I were to play Freedom Unite again. And sometimes I get requests for it, but that was, at my level of skill back then, that's what I needed to do. Yeah. For me, if I want to go back and play an old game, I have a hard time either not picking either 4 Ultimate or 3 Ultimate or to some degree Portable Third. Portable Third is really cool. I wasn't as big of a fan of Gen and Generations Ultimate. I've definitely come to appreciate 4U a lot more over the years. I'm comfortable emulating it now, which takes away my biggest issue with it, in that the tiny screen on the 3DS getting blown up looked horrible. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that put me off making content for 4U a lot of the times, because I'm like, it looks garbage on its own on a computer screen, and then when you blow it up to 720 or 1080p, it's like, what is this mess of pixels we're looking at?
Yeah. Hey, listen, that was not as bad as when I started trying to create content for Monster Hunter. It was actually Freedom Unite, and it was long after Freedom Unite was popular. And I was just like, okay, I don't have anything to capture this with. I was playing on a Vita, and I just get like this camera. I got like, one of those things that you would put like on a car, like with a suction cup. I would have that on the table. Then I would put the Vita on top of that so that the Vita wouldn't move at all. And then I would aim like a camcorder at it. And then I would play through the viewfinder. It's the most uncomfortable experience you can possibly imagine.
Look, content creators are built different. You know, I mean, the people that do it and stick around doing it, do it because they love it, right?
Yeah. As I say, my first videos, if you look at them, it's literally putting the iPhone on the edge of the table and then playing in my lap.
Yeah.
And trying very hard not to shake or move, which didn't work very well.
I guess I could say from a video capture standpoint, I've always been generally pretty well off, and that I've always had like some sort of a actual video capture, or I had I think it was a Katsu Kitty modded Japanese 3DS.
Yeah.
So I guess they're probably pretty rare right now. I mean, those are probably going up in value. I think I've got that in a plastic bin somewhere.
The Katsu Kitty is down now. I mean, it's illegal to mod consoles now in Japan. It is? Yeah.
That sucks.
They made a new law. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, where I think there was complaints about the fact that a lot of content now is being sold digitally, or might be on a cart and unlocked through save data flags and stuff like that. And modding could lead to unfair use.
Yeah.
And pirating, so they made it illegal not to have a pirated one, modded console, but illegal to mod it.
Right. The person doing it itself is committing an illegal action.
So I think all save data editors, all that stuff just went.
Oh, really? Save data editors as well? Wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, the whole industry just went away. So, but there's still people doing it. But Katsu Kitty, I think they shut down. They might still be up. I don't know. But I actually walked to Katsu Kitty physically and got mine modded.
Must be
people
nice.
Waiting half a year. I know people waiting half a year, and then it's a very fragile, process of what they're doing with the chips. So then they ship it overseas, and God knows it might break, during transit. But I was able to walk in, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll have this ready tomorrow." I was like, "Okay, my 3DS is in surgery. It'll be out tomorrow."
So I bought 2 consoles from Katsu Kitty. I bought a Vita because I wanted to capture stuff on the Vita, and I don't regret that because I played so much Soul Sacrifice. I don't know if you guys played Soul Sacrifice, but
played it. Yeah,
you played. Oh, dude, that game was amazing. Yeah. But
very good music, good music. Some of the best music I've ever heard out of a Monster Hunter like game. It stands out. It's amazing.
And not just the music, but even the gameplay. I would say from Monster Hunter inspired games, which there are quite a few of them, I would say that Soul Sacrifice is the best because it does something.
It's in the top 50%. It is very different. I'd say it's in the top 50%. I'm not sure if it's the best, but it's different. It's way more different than anything else.
That's and the story on that is amazing too. But so I got the Vita modded, and that one came through custom, so I got screwed. I basically paid almost, I don't know, freaking 4 times the worth of the console. Something.
I'm sure you're over
$1,000.
Probably.
No, it wasn't over 1,000. It was closer, I think, to 500. Which, considering that the console,
not that bad.
The console
was not bad.
Yeah, the console was
that
worth
just for the mod, or was that with the console too?
No, with the console.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's really not bad.
Yeah, because a modding even in Japan costs about $250. It's not cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're doing it local.
But the console was like 100 bones at the time, I think. So that plus the modding plus customs, it was around 500, 600, something like that. And then with the 3DS, I was super lucky because it didn't come through custom, so I didn't pay them jack.
Yeah. But then the Vita TV probably came out a year after you bought that.
Yeah, and you're like,
no. Actually, the Vita TV came around much later because I.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got yours real early then.
It was not super early. The thing is, I think the Vita TV came on the US before it came on EU. A lot sooner,
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't remember. I know that it wasn't Vita TV's out now, I wasted my money. No, I never felt like that because I got a good few years out of it still.
Well, so I got mine on a fire sale. I think I bought mine for $30. Some super cheap price for my Vita TV. Yeah. I still want to play Muramasa on it someday. I don't really know what other games I'd play on it though. That's it.
We have all these young listeners right now being like, man, they're talking about retro gaming up.
Retro gaming.
People are, there's still Vita games coming out. Visual novels probably in Japan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
visual novels would like to think that the press on the boobs of the characters and stuff. Yeah, 100%. There's tons of those.
Vita had a lot more love here in Japan than it got anywhere else in the world.
Literally more
once
love.
They found that once they found the niche category, like people put out a lot of games for that. So if you were into those types of games, like they have quite a library.
Although Sony's getting super prude now, from what I understand, on the PlayStation store. They're not allowing any lewd content as well. It's like the Nintendo console. If you want to get the lewd stuff, not that I know anything about it. I disavow all knowledge, but
the funny.
It's what they say. Or like Sony is an LA company now, right? So
I honestly don't know.
It's a California company. Like I think they moved their headquarters.
Yeah, they moved it to LA or something.
It's not even Japanese anymore.
There's people in like LA that are going by like American sensibilities and are like, why are there,
probably
people in bikini? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's literally what's been happening.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I mean, the U.S. has some very weird, reserved, almost Puritan
shooting, decapitations, gore, absolutely cool.
Dude,
Little titty. Oh my god, no.
You could see, like, I could live stream whatever, any game right now on Twitch, and it could be like zombies or even humans just getting completely exploded, like in slow motion detail. Completely fine, no problem. Not even remotely close to getting in trouble, but. You play a game and a female character walks out with like no top on for 5 seconds. Oh no! Oh, streamer's getting banned. Oh,
yeah.
But Japan is the opposite. So Japan obviously does not care about sexualizing its characters. That's always done. But they still release.
Matter of fact, it is always done.
It's always done. It is. I mean, like come on, the thighs don't lie, right? Like Rise sold well because it had a good character. So, but like the games like Gears of War or Biohazard or Resident Evil, I'm sorry, they still have censored versions here. So like they'll take out decapitations and they'll take out certain amounts of gore. And I was, it took me a while. I was struggling with it because I was brought up in America, right? So like I didn't get to break out of my mold. And then, so at first it hit me really weird, especially because you get the creepy bad stuff where like they sexualize characters that look like they're 10, and that I still, especially as a father, like that's not
1,000-year-old dragon does not make any difference.
Yeah, so I don't like that part of the industry. But after a few years, I started thinking about it, I'm like, okay, as long as they're not putting in like super like sexualized stuff in magazines for kids, which I always got upset about. There's a place for that. Like you don't give that to everybody. I was like, well, if you think about it, like. Sexualizing characters or the human body is a hell of a lot less taboo than cutting off someone's head or killing them.
Not according to the industry.
I'd say maybe they have it right, because I mean, like that's the kind of stuff that makes me squirm, is like extreme violence. It's like that's probably the stuff you need to look at a little bit closer, than it is like a swimsuit. It's like, come on, like you go and you watch any TV show right now, and I'm like, you can't do that in a video game. In some countries, like, and that's on primetime TV, so it's kind of a weird double standard.
One of the funniest examples was, for me, it was in Dragon Age. So if you guys played Dragon Age, you guys remember, I think her name was
Origins,
Morgan.
right? The first one?
Yeah, Origins. Morgan, the
goth like witch lady, right?
Yeah, exactly. So she had this top on, which clearly showed that she had no bra ever. She doesn't have a bra. She just has this top thing on. If you romanced her, if you romanced her, first thing she does, she puts on a bra. I mean, you got to cover the boobies, like straight up. You can't. However,
excuse me, if we're gonna get intimate, I will. You cannot see my nipples.
Exactly.
I may be an all-powerful sorceress, but God forbid.
But the best part about this is that same game later down the line. You meet this demon, this ugly, nasty looking creature who is also a female, has not one pair, but 3 pairs of boobs, nasty, disfigured looking in pure flesh boobs. None of those are censored. They could have put a bra on those. They look terrible, but no, those
I would have
are
loved
fine.
to see the triple cup bra, the rare triple cup bra. Just to censor some sort of weird succubus boobs.
It was so bad. I was just like, so you have to censor Morrigan's boobs, but this terrible looking female monster with 6 boobs that look nasty, No, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. It's like, okay, it doesn't make any sense to me, but man, you do you.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, there's always going to be like whatever the director's vision is should be available to anyone, at least of 18.
Yeah.
And then for parents that have kids, just have like the no exploding head option in the options. Like video games are nice
Yeah.
like that because you can do like some level of censorship in real time. That's what makes them an interesting medium. Like not everybody has to see a head getting exploded. Just give it as an option because I'm sure there may be some games you'd want your daughter to play, but you're like, maybe that just gets a little bit too on the extreme violence side, But if there was an option to maybe not have, whole human bodies exploding at once and stuff like that.
I would love to say you're right, but I guess I'm a bad parent in that regard.
Oh.
She saw. I mean, she was probably 4 years old, and she knew that if she was ever attacked by a zombie, to go for the headshot because I think she saw us watching.
Well, you're preparing her for other things.
I think me and my ex-wife, we were watching The Walking Dead or something, and it was like, so she was like, oh, and we're like, let me teach her an English word, headshot. It's like, but no, she understands and it actually is good because as a parent, you want to have that discussion very early on about fantasy violence and the difference. And so trying to hide it or like not talk about it or forbidding it is kind of like there's a catch rule in there, right?
Yeah, I think
so it's much better
just
just
to
be
have the
open
option.
and yeah, but I agree. Having the option would be nice because kids are different. And some kids
can't handle it. Some kids would wig out, like start going crazy. Like, it's one thing, one child could look at it and be fine. The next kid would be at school the next day and like they won't stop talking about it, exploding zombies or having nightmares or being traumatized and stuff like that.
The movie that really marked me with that stuff was RoboCop.
Really?
Yeah, RoboCop. Like, dude, I would have
toxic nightmare guy at the end. I remember that. No,
There's
the guy melting.
None of that. It's one very specific scene that I've never forgot, and I actually had nightmares about it. That's when they're shooting him up before he becomes RoboCop.
Oh and yeah.
There's violent. There's that one part where one of them just shoots his hand off, and his hand is just gone. And I was just like, what the hell? Like I was super young when I saw that, and I was like,
"Yeah,
you can lose a hand.
This happens.
You can lose a hand." No,
wow,
that marked me, dude. That thing was, and I think that movie was like rated for kids 13 or something like that. It was like, whoa,
makes sense. Yeah, by American standards, that's PG-13. He didn't die. He became maybe he did technically die, but he became RoboCop, so he came back.
Yeah. It's all good.
I guess because I'm sharing embarrassing stories of myself today. So like, getting my butt kicked by Arzuros, I may as well say I grew up becoming a huge fan of horror movies. So gore was a big part of my life. My brother got into visual effects and was studying it. And so we did face molds and all that kind of stuff. But before that, when I was young, oh man, Large Marge from Pee-wee's Big Adventure scared the living crap out of me. The truck driver woman who goes,
yeah,
that scared the living daylights out of me. I had nightmares for weeks. And then there was an audiobook version of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, narrated by Vincent Price. And he had a scream that scared the living shit out of me. And so that traumatized me. But then I guess
illustrations were something else too. I mean, I'm sure you read the book along with it. Yeah, it's that's awful. I don't know why that was a kid's book. That should have not been released to children. That caused a lot of issues.
But I ended up embracing horror, so I guess it worked out in the end. But it just reminds me of, when you say traumatizing, the only thing I could think back is the most comical thing, which is Large Marge.
Yeah, I watched a lot of horror movies when I was a kid too. I mean, I love it. I still love it. I mean, it's definitely a guilty pleasure, but I do like to watch some of the Saw movies. And every time I watch it, like I legitimately feel guilty, but like I just like the Rube Goldberg machines. And even though special effects are usually pretty bad, they're still like, it's interesting to see what they're going to do.
I imagine you watched and enjoyed the first installment of Cube. The movie Cube.
It's very oppressive, but that was good. I think I saw the second one. I'm like, this sucks. But the first one is actually the very first one is interesting. And it's a scary movie. I mean, you're like, I'm going to die in this cube. This cube is awful. Yeah. I do not want to be in this cube. I promise you, if I was put in the cube, I'd be out. I might make it to cube 2, like the second room. But by cube 3, I'm done. I'm the second guy. Just like, that would be my name in the movie. The credits would be the guy who died in the second room. That would be
second room guy.
Second room guy. That's me.
Okay. I'm gonna try to wrangle us back into some Monster
Yes,
Hunter
wrangle us
territory.
That's up to you. I'm just following whatever you guys are going with.
It's
Oh man,
good
don't follow us.
conversation. It's good
Off a cliff.
conversation. I think people like hearing, just like stories from people that play Monster Hunter as well, so it's all good. But I wanted to ask you something that we always ask, of course, everyone, about your weapon. Which one do you consider your main weapon nowadays?
I've been playing a lot of Dragon's Dogma for the last 2 weeks, but which game are we talking about? Are we talking about Rise? Or are we talking about?
I mean, just
World?
like in general, is there a weapon that you would generally identify as your main, and then we can move that up to Rise?
I definitely don't have a main. If anything, depending on the release, there are weapons I don't like in that release. In Rise, it's probably the light bowgun. Oddly enough, in World, it's probably the heavy bowgun. Can't tell you why that is. I guess I could tell you why it is, but I'm not sure if I want to go into that much detail. If I had to pick a weapon in Rise, it would be switch axe or great sword, or if I'm feeling lazy, insect glaive. Probably those three the most often. I like the bow a lot in World and Rise. In both games, especially in Rise, it's too powerful.
Yeah, it's broken.
Like,
so I hear.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't
guilty pleasure.
have the roster from the end of Iceborne that exists to punish you. Like in many ways, it felt like Safi a little bit, Alatrion and Fatalis were all designed to be like, oh, you want to use bow? You have to earn it because we're going to murder you. And also these shot hit zones along with elemental hit zones are going to be really weird. I mean, and that became increasingly clear to me as Iceborne went on, that they were trying to solve how to balance weapons with these things that just kind of sidestep the issue, right? Like, so you got your sticky spam, you've got bow that's insanely powerful. How do you create hit zones that deal with these things? And I'd say for the most part, they succeeded. I have no issue there. But in Rise, especially where we are right now, I mean, you can take pretty much anything with a well-made, well-crafted rampage bow and just delete them. But probably, the weapon I started with and the weapon I like to go back the most is probably greatsword. But I really don't feel like I get typecast in any one weapon. I mean, I've done full game speedruns in World with every weapon type, even the weird ones like heavy bowgun. Because it's fun. I mean, every time you pick up a new weapon, it's like you're playing another game. I mean, it's still Monster Hunter, it's the same monsters, but you will have a completely different experience using a lance than you will a longsword. Longswords have better counters, which sucks. But I mean, what are you gonna do? And that goes for everything. So, in that regard, I guess that's the best answer I'm going to be able to give you.
Good answer.
It is. Yeah. It is good, but particularly because the switch axe, I think during the demo, both me and Gaijin said that the switch axe was one of the more surprising things that we had seen in the demo because of some of the moves that it got and just the overall feel of the weapon when compared to something like World. It just felt like it was much more solid, and it actually embodied the whole thing of switch axe. You're meant to switch with it, not just switch back to axe when your gauge is low.
Right. So historically, I have hated the switch axe. The only time I ever started to warm up to it at all was in GU with some of the style changes and some of the arts that made it a little bit more viable in axe mode, because I don't want it to just be a sword. I'd like it to be an axe sometimes. World completely changed me on that. I'm happy to use switch axe in a lot of different ways. Iceborne created the clutch claw, zero sum discharge, which it's like the thing you must resist, like the evil that exists inherent in all men. You must suppress the desire to clutch claw in zero sum with temporal mantle or rocksteady mantle. But assuming you do that, I'm fine with power axe mode and all the other changes. Those were all great. And then especially in Rise, and especially with how they balance power file, you can always brute force your way with, was it Soaring Wyvern is the ability that charges up your gauge by a certain fixed amount. But you don't have to play it that way. I mean, the axe mode still, if you do the overhead chop, it doesn't take that long and you'll be able to power up pretty quickly in that mode, or you can just use exhaust or element. And then, once your axe is going, the axe especially using rapid morph combos there, you're using it all. You're using it all the time. I mean, you still switch back and forth just for different reasons. In Iceborne, you
Yeah.
needed it to try and keep your gauge up. In Rise, with Rapid Morph, you actually get a damage increase doing the transformation combos. So, Rise, I have to say, it's one of mechanically the best games I've ever played. From a monster design standpoint, in terms of how they actually fight, one of the best games I've ever played. It's just a shame that nobody's playing it because it feels like there's just not the end game that needs to be there. We don't have the Skinner box that keeps us running back, like searching for the attack decos or the stream stones. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way. I'm not sure if you guys are still putting in, a couple dozen hours a week on the.
This is actually a
Oh,
very
a lot more than that.
It's a very good segue because you're talking specifically about Skinner box and whatnot. This is something that we tend to see in comment sections a whole lot. So you're of the opinion that you would rather have something like the eternal chase of decos versus being able to just get them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, let me clarify where I stand. From a player standpoint, Rise is the absolute most respectful to its players in terms of you're going to be able to get a charm that's fine. Even if it's not perfect, it's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to get the decos you want with a little bit of grinding. You're going to be able to get all the weapons and armor you want, and you're going to be set and you're going to be done. And you'll have that level of accomplishment, and you'll have done it because you earned and crafted all those things. And it maybe took you 100 or 200 hours or so to get the talisman that you're satisfied with, and you might have gotten some really unique ones along the way. I think I've got a level 3 quick sheath, 2 fire attack, 2 level 2 deco talisman, and that thing just like owns bones. If I decide, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's like one of those rare ones that's like really outstanding if you want to use a fire and a longsword or something like that, which is a little bit hard to do, but you could do it. But the issue is that for many players, and I'm not really one of them. Like, I like to play Monster Hunter because I like to kill monsters. I don't need that eternal chase, and I certainly don't need like, and this was common in the end game and world, in Iceborne especially, like, here's your new armor. Get your new armor. Get your new weapon. Now you're more powerful than you were last time. Here's another monster. Here's your new armor. Here's your new weapon. Now you're even more powerful than last time. Like, I don't need that power creep. I much rather the style of there being more options necessarily than there being like a bigger number. Like, a bigger number doesn't really do anything for me. Like, I'm doing the same thing I did before. Now, rather than hitting at 1800, I hit at 1900. Cool. Great. Hooray. But it doesn't fundamentally do anything neat. Like Frostcraft, that did something neat. Frostcraft is a cool skill, right? It changes your play style. It changes how you approach things. It's super powerful, but you have to know how to play around it. But the issue with Rise is it's not only that, of course, in terms of event quests, they're not great, but that, and we can all agree on that. Nobody's arguing.
Dude, that's like for me and Gaijin, whenever we talk about Rise, like we say, okay, we think that the end game is not really a huge problem because a lot of people make a big deal out of not having the Skinner box aspect. I love that word. I always forget to use that. I love the fact that you just brought that up. It's like a lot of people always bring that up. They want that Skinner box thing. Whereas me and Gaijin were like, we're happy like being done with our sets and just hunting for fun. But both of us agree that events are a huge problem this game. Events are a big problem. Because they're not.
I'm gonna interrupt you guys really weird and ask, because we were just talking about horror movies, and so I've got Hellraiser in my head. When you say Skinner box, all I'm thinking is a potato peeler that cuts off skin. Like, what's
no. So Skinner box is like a guy, psychologist named Skinner would put these mice in a box, and they would push a button, and sometimes they would get a reward, and by giving them a reward randomly, they push the button a lot more than if you just push the button and got a reward every single time.
I'd say.
And so it's a way to psychologically condition somebody to want to do the same thing over and over again. And, World had that. World had that in a lot of different ways. It had it in decorations because, I have some saves. I've got 3 saves. I've got Xbox, PS4, and PC. I have some saves that aren't like perfect. So the Skinner box out there exists for me for that. In base world, you had stream stones, which were like mega rare and super pain in the ass, especially if you wanted to make a wide variety of weapons. that had different things like that. And then parts also were not refundable in base world. So that was a pretty big deal there. And I would say world saw actually the most staying power, not only because it was new and huge and good and had a lot of new content, but because you had parallel running Skinner boxes running between decorations as well as those stream stones. And then you had, these AT monsters coming out that were extremely difficult, and people had challenging content to try and complete. And those were also rotating through. So your AT Kirin, Valhazak, Teostra, Lunastra, Extremith, all of those things that were such challenging content to even people who were good at the game that it would keep people coming back over and over again to try and like overcome such a challenge. Go to Rise, your Skinner box isn't even, I've completed a quest, here are my rewards. Your Skinner box is, I have to run over to a cat, dump my garbage into his lap, check through all these things.
Yeah.
I have to decide to either sell all or then meld said things into other talismans because otherwise my equipment box fills up.
That's really the only
issue.
Skinner. That's the only Skinner box in Rise, pretty much.
And you don't even need it, because if you get something good enough, let's say it's 2 points protect and polish, whatever.
Most of the builds that I do, I even just tell people, listen, for this build, all you need is a neck with 2 tier 2 slots. That's it. It's like anything else that comes after that, that's a bonus. You just need the tier 2 slots so that you can put these 2 decos in there, and the rest is whatever. It's bonus.
Yeah, I mean, for the pure meta butt boys, you just go 4-piece Valstrax, Ingot, or Hunter Greaves, and right, I guess we're done now. we're finished. If you go Dragonheart, if you don't go Dragonheart, then what is it? Teo Head, Vike Chest, what the hell are the arms? Could be Teo arms, whatever. They're fine. The Gambi arms, they're fine. Whatever the test.
Coil.
Anjanath Coil, Ingot, or Hunter Greaves.
Or Hunter S.
Hunter S, and then you've got your talisman.
If you're playing those basic weapons, sure. But if if you're playing a proper weapon, then you have some basil pieces that you.
Sure, you can do nearly full basil if you're doing gun lance especially, or sometimes charge blade. Yeah, you could do that. That's fine. And to Rise's credit, especially patches 1.0 and 2.0, I think there was still a lot of build variability. But the second we started to get level 2 decos that had weakness exploit, crit boost, and protective polish or master's touch, just at the drop of a hat, drop into any set, and then you could craft said decos. You didn't even have to chase them. You just spend a week less getting the Lazarite you needed. That was it for that regard. So like I said, my impression of Rise as a game is it's the best that I've ever seen in terms of gameplay. I think the wire bugs are a lot of fun. I think the wire bug arts are very close to being perfect. I think some weapons, I wish it wasn't like the hammer wasn't like the impact, whatever spin, dive, whatever it is.
Impact Crater?
That move, Impact Crater. It's so powerful relative to anything else the hammer you can do. Sometimes you just want to triple pound a guy, or you want to, use the Big Bang combo. But if you got your wire bugs and you don't do the Impact Crater, like, you've missed out on so much damage. So in that regard, I wish they would like maybe tune those a little bit more. And in World, in patch 1 or whatever that we got with Devil Joe, they did do some corrections, but we haven't seen that yet. I don't know why. Maybe they're fine. Maybe they're happy. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you?
I hope that
my guess is they're happy. I mean, I think this goes, and this might be one of the reasons why the staying power of a game like GU, which just their only way of, Monster Hunter Generations was to just overload you with stuff to make, but there wasn't a necessity to make anything, and there was an intentional game design from the same director who said, I want people to experiment, I want them to have fun, I just want to make it a little bit easier for you. They still had some like super grindy ass stuff with the deviants, but there was never a huge chase of like you guys are saying, like in World. And for better or worse, right? Like, there's 2 types of players. There's those who like a game that respects your time a little bit more and lets you fiddle around with the tools easier. And then there's people who are like, well, if you're going to give me most of the stuff with relative ease, now I don't have goals, and now I feel less motivated, even though I really love it. So I don't know if there's a sweet middle ground that they can find. But if anything, I would say their opportunity to find that sweet middle ground will be an ultimate release.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I'm happy that I'm the type of gamer, I don't care either way. I'm going to play the hell out of the game.
sure.
And I just fallen more towards the camp of I'd rather things be obtainable. I don't need the chase, but I completely get that that's not the case for many gamers.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my level of delusion is such that I want greatsword with the proper element to be the weapon that you would make, right? Even if it's 1 point of damage on Teostra's head or whatever, I want it to be for the people that really want to put the time in and go through every single weapon and every single category, that wanted to make an element of each type. And I think we could all generally agree that there's no reason that should be a bad thing. It shouldn't be a huge
Yeah.
difference. It shouldn't be like, oh wow, I killed it in one shot. It should be like you get like the 2
a little
3
bit,
points
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
A little bit more to reward you for putting in the time for creating such a wide variety of weapons.
See,
Yeah.
And
that's a thing that I always talk about, and we've talked about here multiple times, where I'm just like, why does elemental damage just suck unless you're playing like dual blades or bow or maybe 1 or 2 more weapons? It's like, it just sucks. There's no reason for you to do elemental damage in any of these other weapons unless the weapon also has better raw than the rest of them, and the elemental damage is just a bonus. You should never really build for elemental damage in most weapons of the game, which doesn't make sense because, you know, making those specific sets should reward you for putting in the effort, because like you're putting in more effort than just like, here's a generic ass friggin' raw damage set. Boom, done. Crit boost,
Yeah,
weak
and-
exploit, done.
And Rise took a cool step where, you know, attack boost is a level 2 deco, element boost is level 1, even with free element +5.
Yeah,
Getting
you-
it for
It's not
free,
enough.
still not enough. And then don't even get me started on critical element. I
Yeah, oh
honestly
God.
feel like critical
Oh my
element
God.
must be like the guys get together and they laugh about it. Like they're eating lunch and one guy just looks up, you know, from his lunch. He's like, critical element. Everybody just goes, like they all just like start laughing, you know? Like I had a video at one point, I released it. I'm like, guys, like this weapon, this is bugged. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, it's rounding down. Never mind. Like it was like 2 or 3, like there was no difference. Like there was no visible difference in damage, like between like 1 and 3 levels of critical element. It's because of the way the rounding works.
I've got a weird theory going on, which is I've been testing out and trying to find where the elemental caps are, right? Because every game has a cap of how much you can
I don't
boost your
think this one
element.
has.
You
don't think it has it.
cannot hit the cap, and we're talking well above the types of multipliers that they've ever allowed in a game.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, are they seeding elemental to be a very big thing in an ultimate release? And so now
Don't give me
they've made the caps super loose. Yeah, I'm an endless
Optimist?
optimistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So-
Can you hear? They decided
No.
they're using like a shovel pounder outside. It's going.
You sound fine.
So
It's
okay,
only
good.
bothering you.
God bless.
But
God bless the dynamic mic doesn't pick it up. Sheesh, it feels like an
but-
earthquake here.
You know, the ultimate kick in the crotch, though, you know, in 3.0, we got the Valstrax armor, which, like, then, you know, it has definitely a lot of upsides in terms of boosting your raw, but then it has the side effect of being like, oh, by the way, we delete all of your element other than dragon.
Yeah, it's
Like, can you believe that?
That's amazing.
Again, like a joke.
yes, raw.
But yeah, it's funny that also cancels it out, because I even had this big brain idea that I remember, because I was doing this on stream and I was like, oh my God, guys, I'm going to make the best possible poison dual blade set. I'm like, dude, I got this big brain idea. Guys, you have no idea. Listen, I'm going to put 5 pieces of Valstrax.
I see where this is going.
I'm sorry.
So did you have
I'm
to go
sorry.
into a hunt before you figured it out?
So someone in my chat was just like, doesn't the Dragon Blight remove poison? And I just stared at the camera for like a minute, and I was like,
feels
bad
bad,
chat. They should have just let you do it. Like
Just let it happen.
They gotta
Yeah.
troll you.
I mean, they could have put
Oh,
in
man,
that
it's
he
gonna be
doesn't
great.
know meme. You know, streamer doesn't know. They should have done that. You know, but
it was funny
whatever.
as hell. Though, but yeah. Yeah, it does suck that it takes your element away, because I had so many plans when I first saw that set. I was like, dude, this might be the thing. I'm going to make so many elemental sword and shield builds. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm actually not. Never mind.
Why not?
Everyone's got a plan until they get Dragon Blight.
Why not like Fire Blight? Fire Blight would have been cool as hell. You take damage.
You can activate resentment.
Proc resentment, and then you've still got your, whatever it is.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah. All of those things, but no. Had to be Dragon Blight because it was the final kick you in the pants for. Because otherwise, I did a bunch of math on it. I never made the video because I was just too depressed. Like Elemental Insect Glaive actually does work out in a lot of cases, even relative to the Nargacuga Insect Glaive, which is like the most broken Nargacuga weapon in the game.
Yeah.
Just the sheer number of times you're hitting it during the advanced aerial strike. You hit so many times that actually element does work out on Insect Glaive. And then of course you get the bonus of cutting bugs gets your element as well. So assuming that the Nargacuga Chad bug doesn't beat it up because it's like level 6 or level 7, which is again, another reason why it's broken. But assuming the element keeps up for it at least will keep pace. Oh, well, I mean, I guess we have to see. I mean, they've said look forward to July and August. I'm assuming no new monsters until at least September. I'm assuming it's like going to be like a Phoenix Wright crossover, which is cool. I mean, I like Phoenix Wright. It's just a guess, but I don't really know what else
they want to keep everything kind of like clear for people to enjoy stories too. I feel like I don't think they're going to be adding.
There's not going to be anything huge.
Yeah,
no. It's going to maybe a stories monster. Sailing. It's possible. It could happen. Good segue for stories too, by the way. You did that. Yeah, I know you want to talk about it.
It was amazing, wasn't it? So I think I'll let Gaijin start us off because I know he's probably the most excited. He spent like 21 hours in the demo at this point.
You have a problem
with stories
Seek
too.
help.
Yes. Like I'll be honest, like just so if you guys have not tried the demo, which you should.
Yeah,
it's like 3-4 hours. Like for the listeners, like it's just
8.
the first chapter of the game. It's like the first half of the tutorial. So like you'll probably get I'm going to say like the average critical path player who's not going to do the subquests and they're just going to go through it is going to get a few hours out of it. You're not going to get 21. I'm just crazy.
Maxing everything out to level 10 or whatever the level cap is on the monsters.
Oh, I've already maxed out all the weapons and all the armor, and I have lots of Zenny.
I did the playthrough on the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did that trial over 100 times. So I was trying so hard to find just a more convenient way. And now I'm itching to go egg hunting because I want to get even better. I'm just it's so funny though. Like I talk about the fact that I like Rise and like these games that are making it pretty easy for you. And then I talk about a game that's grindy like Stories, and I'm like, love it because it's just good fun.
Satisfying.
But it's very satisfying. They have some things in the game that I noticed that start hinting towards them respecting your time more, which I really like. Like I don't know if you got to level 11 in the demo, but if you get to level 11, the game realizes that there's a power gap between you and certain monsters.
Yeah.
And it allows you to just hit 2 buttons and boom, 1 turn kill. It's like debug mode. Like if you've worked in games.
Destroy anything that
boom, and you get the points, you get the materials, you get everything. It's just an instant kill.
Does that seem like something they're keeping over to the full game, or you think that's a demo?
I think so, yeah. No, that feels like a
feels
feature.
like a game. Yeah, they actually give you like a tutorial. They give you a tutorial saying like, hey, if your level disparity between the monsters is this big, just press the 2 triggers and done.
I've got no issue with that. I mean, that's
it's great.
All the way back to Earthbound. I'm assuming you guys have at least played it or at least seen it. You bump into classic Super Nintendo title. Holy crap! You've been missing out on all those.
I know of it, but
yeah. It's the first game I can remember had the feature of not only seeing the enemies wandering around the world map, but then if you over level them by a certain amount, you'd bump into them. Rather than a normal screen or an ambush, which is like gray or red, it would go green. They just blow up. You take no damage. You get the experience, you get the items, and you're good. And there'd be one really hard area of the game, and like the enemies were just so strong. Like they'd hit you hard. They'd have all these bad status ailments. and you'd be struggling there for a while just to try and get your way to the boss. And then you hit this certain level, and all these things that
Yeah.
were bothering you just suddenly immediately exploding. Oh, it feels so good. I still remember it. The sense of relief when you would run into one of these enemies and they would just like disappear off the screen.
Oh,
I think
that's
that's
cool.
fine. I mean, no reason. I mean, you could always speed it up to what is it, 3 times? Is that the max speed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is really nice.
It's still
And
fast. I mean, you can
yeah,
mash
and
through it
then
quickly.
and if you're overpowered, monsters will actively run away from you. So they're not forcing you to go into a bunch of random encounters. It's like if you want to grind, whether it's to quickly level up a new monstie or just to get materials to make a part, they'll just make it very easy for you, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I didn't see meat in
I
the game. Is it in there?
Meat?
Remember
Who?
meat from story in stories 1, you'd get this meat and you could feed your new monsties it and it would just give them experience. But I didn't see
Yeah,
it when I played
it
it.
wasn't in this one, but they do have a very easy way to level up your monsties, which is all the subquests. You can keep doing them over and over again. So if you have like 20, 30 raw meats, you can do that same quest like 6 times,
Right.
like beep, 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 and you get
Yeah.
tons of experience points for doing
But I
that.
think
And
So
then everybody shares experience anyways, right, from combat.
I think
So
I
I'm sure
think
they get
that
up
they
quickly.
level up super fast. They need to have like a catch up system or something, because you would go
Yeah,
into a fight even though it wasn't a very powerful monster, and like your new monster would be like 4 levels, and you're just like,
Ching.
whoa. So they
I
level
like
up
it. I
super
like it
fast.
because I just love how the demo is. It's so the thing that I think I like the most is that, and I can't remember for the life of me, even though I played Monster Hunter Stories once so much. But the fact that you're not going to choose a weapon to use, you're going to use all 3 types of weapons. You have some choice within those categories, but there are general times where you're going to want a striking weapon or
Right.
a blunt weapon, or I find that incredibly cool. The fact that it's not like archaic game design where like if I change my weapon once during a turn, that is my turn and it
Right.
punishes you for it. No,
Yeah.
like that's not your turn.
I
You can
don't
change out
think
your
I think
monster once.
you could switch your weapons and stories, but I don't think you normally would because I don't think there was
Yeah, there's
damage
no
typing
reason.
from your.
Yeah,
And I don't even remember
exactly.
if there was element on the weapons and stories. Obviously, there was element on the monsties, but I can't remember there being element on the weapons. There may have been. Somebody's going to call it out in the
Yeah,
comments, be
Yeah.
like, "You idiot! There's element." Oh my god!
I wouldn't know because
it's
I
been a
only
few
played
years.
like 5 hours of the
I
original
love stories 1.
stories.
I beat the main game. I never did. There's some post game content.
Oh,
I
I
never
did
did that,
all
but
that.
yeah, but I
I
loved
don't know what it
stories
is, but
1.
my best performing video on my channel through all these years, best performing, like in terms of metrics, is a Monster Hunter Stories video.
That doesn't make any sense.
Eh, Well, the thing is
That's
apparently
crazy.
there was, I don't know what country it was, but apparently there was a shop that was looping that video constantly. It was a very it was a very long video of me going through the final tower, and I got to the very end. That's the post game content, and God bless whoever it was. Must have
You
played the
got
thing
served to the
so
whole
many
country.
times. Like it literally is my best performing video of all time.
They're still playing
And
it
it's
today.
thanks, I don't know,
You
but
know,
they're not listening to this, but if you are, thank you.
there
Like
might be
seriously,
somebody
it's
doing that with one of my great sword speedrun videos because that thing is performing well more than it should, and I have no idea why. The YouTube
yeah,
algorithm
but
is so dumb. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
I know, right?
tell me
Everyone
about it.
thinks my daughter is like 6 years old because it's for some reason recommending videos from years ago. And so everyone's like, wow, she's so young and she's doing all mother Narwa naked. I'm like, she's 12. She's a young teen. She's a preteen now. So
Well, could
um
I have done that at 12? Maybe. Possibly.
So
yeah. So
how
it's
how far did you
but
get
yeah,
in the how far did you get in the demo, Shepard? I know that you haven't finished it yet, right?
I killed a cuckoo, I guess. I don't want to sound. I played it for 2 hours. And it was fun. It was good. My main save is going to be on PC.
Oh,
So
okay,
I
so
ain't
okay.
that's
bothered.
Well,
why
that
you're
explains a
not.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not that I didn't like the game. It's just that, not that even that I mean care that much about spoiling myself for the stuff in the demo. But
Yeah.
when I play, I prefer 1080p 60. I mean, I didn't think the performance was bad on the Switch at all. Some cutscenes were a little choppy, like 20 frames or something like that. It was definitely a little
Mm.
noticeable. I'm disappearing again, but
yeah.
Yeah, but it's not the PC experience for sure.
The biggest problem that I had with the demo in terms of like the frame rate and whatnot was the fact that they chose to leave it uncapped. I think is actually bad. I think they would have done better if they had optimized it at like 30. because then it's
Yep.
not as
Now
jarring.
when that Switch, yeah, but now when the Switch Pro comes out next year, it'll be perfectly ready for it.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
They
it's
don't
like,
even have to patch it. They don't even have to patch it. It'll work straight out of the box.
yeah.
Do you think
but
it'll
we'll
go
still-
60 though?
Oh yeah. I think
I don't-
considering
I don't
I'm
know.
looking back at the jump. Okay, I'm looking at the jump of the processor from the 3DS to the new 3DS. It was like 3 times more powerful. It was ridiculous. We're not going to get that much, but I think the fact that the game can push close to 60 in some more smaller parts of the game, I think if they're going to do a refresh of the hardware for Breath of the Wild 2 and Rise Ultimate or whatever next year, which is all speculation, I think it would be able to push a 1080p game to 60 FPS. At least this game for sure. I don't believe any of that like 4K crap and I don't believe any of that.
4K.
So
I don't know. The speculation I read, and look, your guess is
It's
as
like-
good as anyone's. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, the only one's opinion that doesn't matter is I think Bloomberg and New York Times, because they've been calling this
Oh, yeah.
every year, and they look
Every
like
month.
idiots.
More like every
time.
week. More like every
week. This is the week. It's gonna
It's
happen.
gonna
Look, guys,
happen.
stop, okay? Just
If-
you know,
and here's the best part. When it eventually does happen, they'll be like, you see, we predicted it.
we called this years ago. Yes,
We
Nintendo
knew it.
released a new
Of course.
console. Here is your crown.
You
Enjoy.
only remember the hits, right? You only remember
Yeah.
it's cold reading basically. It's
Yeah.
like so stupid.
I don't know. I've read speculation that you should keep optimism low for the new hardware to be majorly different, because
Yeah, I don't- I wouldn't
it would
suspect
appear they may not even have any intention of upgrading the performance, like the chip and the memory and the graphics and all that. Apparently they're not looking to make any major changes, but I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
I just say if they're gonna do anything, then just from a
I
production.
hope they do. I mean, I would love it.
I would
I'd be there
say
day
next.
one.
Yeah, next summer would be if it doesn't come next summer with a Rise Ultimate before something like Zelda 2, then I would say yeah, it's whatever.
What is your speculation on a Rise Ultimate? Actually, I'd love to hear it.
So my speculation is that we are going to get a Rise Ultimate, and there's a lot of reasons why I feel that way. One is the reason why we didn't get a portable third Ultimate was because 3G came right on top of it. It was just really bad slate planning on Capcom's behalf, because Monster Hunter 3G was never intended to be 3G. It was intended to be a port of Tri with a few extra elements, but then the dev team went crazy making all this new stuff.
They went way overboard.
So they said, "Oh, let's make it 3G." So that obviously knocked out.
And then they made
portable third from getting
Wii
a G
U
rank.
version, which is even crazier, which wasn't the
Yeah.
best port in the world, but I mean, at least we had it, right?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking like, new hardware I know when I say just came out, it didn't just come out, but it's still in its launch period, right? Like the world is not in a good place. Chipsets are not in a good place. Availability of units is in a bad place. Even engine availability and stuff, just optimization, right? And like trying to get used to new hardware. Monster Hunter 6, I'll just call it that. The next console, Monster Hunter.
Whatever the next
I'm sure it's
World
gonna be
2 or whatever it is.
That's going to take quite some time to make. So there's no way in heck I see that something like that coming out next year. I think that's
No.
way over optimism. So
No, 2023 at the earliest, I think, for that. I
yeah,
agree with you
so
on
I
that.
think that opens up the door perfectly to a Rise Ultimate release for next summer or something like that, right? And I also think that if Breath of the Wild 2, which I'm going to guess is going to come out for holiday season next year, if that's going to push the system in a way where having a slightly more upgraded Switch would be advantageous for frame rate, then maybe they might, because in Japan they released the new 3DS alongside a Monster Hunter game. Monster
Well, I
Hunter
know
4 Ultimate.
4U had. Well, I have the
Yeah.
4U 3DS. That was
Yeah,
my-
so they
that's the only
launched
big
that
thing,
new
yeah.
hardware with that. It was a launch title for it.
Yep. And it needed
helped
it. I
show
mean, it was
off.
very nice being able to play on the new
Yeah,
3DS. That
so
was
I
definitely a
think-
good way to play it.
Looking at the way Rise is structured, and I'm very happy that they're not committing to, like, to me, it seemed obvious that they were not planning on making a Generations Ultimate. The reason I say that is because they had certain endgame systems and the way the deviants were structured that if you were planning for an Ultimate release, like, that would be a very bad way to plan it. And indeed, like, that stuff did not scale very well, and they had to actually
15 times to get your full set
Yeah.
upgraded is bad times, man.
So
That's
good.
sucks.
What are you
with the
talking
same
about?
song over and over again too.
It's
I hate that
amazing.
Especially
immediate
when-
thing.
I loved it.
Yeah, and especially if they're selling it like an anniversary title. It's a celebration thing, right? It's not meant to be taken as a numbered release. It's just they're all here, throw in our assets, let's just celebrate the franchise, which is great. I'm seeing things in Rise that tell me that they're holding back, which is good. Like I don't see endgame loops that they have to expand on. There's lots of little story hints here and there trying to get you invested in these characters, and themes that they have not fully explored. We got things like the Rondine and where she's from. We've got the fact that Yomogi's not actually from Kimura, and we don't know. They're already tweeting out, like, from the official Twitter, lore about Fugen's niece being a badass hunter that kills Arzuros with her bare hands. And there's just enough seeds here that I think, and there's so much investment they made from a technical standpoint with
Sure.
getting this to go on the thing. Like, it makes perfect sense that there would be a Rise Ultimate. Now, it's kind of interesting because like the West didn't always get the base game releases for everything. It's half and half, right?
It was rough, yeah.
And judging by people's reaction, I'm kind of curious if there was. I always often mocked Capcom and said, I think whoever was deciding that was insane. The fact that you
It's
wouldn't release
completely
Monster Hunter
crazy.
4, but then you look at the reaction of how people are judging
Rise,
Rise, and I'm like, maybe there was some merit to their thought process of let's hold off and just release the ultimate version in the West because there would be tons of content. They'd be able to expand on it. There'd be all the chasing stuff, but it's a year without the latest game. Come on, which is wrong. I'm very happy that they released it, but I definitely think that we're going to get an ultimate version. And again, it goes back to pipeline. I just don't see. I think they have the resources. Dragon's Dogma 2, if they're making it, fingers crossed. That's going to take a while to make. That'll take a while to make because I mean, like they were saying, he had a choice between Dogma 2 or Devil May Cry, and he chose to do Devil May Cry first. So I'm assuming he's working on Dragon's Dogma, but that's going to take years. 6 will take years because they set the bar so damn high with Iceborne. It's so good. So yeah, I think we're going to have a really good, nice, fun year of Rise expansion next year, and I'm all for it. And it's what's really weird though, and I notice is people are like, yeah, but I hope if they're going to release it as another game, that's bullshit. I'm like, well, one, even with Iceborne, it was released as a game. Like if you didn't own World, you could buy Iceborne as a game. But you can get it cheaper as DLC if you have the game. And I imagine that's how it would work for this time.
I don't see how it would be any different. Just $40 DLC and you're good to go. And nobody's going to complain about that.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle again. Forget about that.
Right. Yeah. No,
I kind of personally, because Rise feels like it's more closer to Iceborne, I think, than the older games, but it still has the spirit of some of the more classic formula, for better or worse. I kind of hope that they call it G rank.
I would
and
love
they don't
to
go with Master rank.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. They were referring to Ichinose referred to Generations when talking about it. He said, or it was either him or Kojima, the producer, and they said, look, you have Street Fighter, and then you got the Street Fighter Alpha, and this is like the Street Fighter Alpha of the series. We're going to try some new stuff. It's a little bit different. It's still a mainline title. It's part of the main series, but it's going to be a little experimental, and it's going to be tuned differently, and we're going to try new stuff. And I mean, to their credit, man, some of the stuff that they did in the previous portable games the main series have always pulled the best ideas from those, and
there's a lot of
some of the other
arguments
ones,
out there. Yeah. I mean, there was this. It was like I felt like an 8-hour video on YouTube where somebody was trying to make the argument that Monster Hunter, we only play Monster Hunter Portable, and Monster Hunter as a game doesn't exist anymore, which is obviously a little dramatic. But
no, I know. I actually tweeted out that video, and I know what you're talking about. It was actually fascinating for me because this person was going really in depth on Dose, which is a game that I never got to play.
So I played it.
Talking about just wow.
So I could talk a little bit about it.
You hate?
No, it's interesting. Just like
I played Dose. Yeah, it was on stream. It was like within the last 6 months. It is like a survival game. You may find enjoyment in the struggle, but that does not objectively make it a better game. Like Gaijin,
I would, of course, yeah, I would agree.
Career, child, all those things. you're not going to find a wellspring of joy in your heart when you have to spend 20 minutes gathering herbs and blue mushrooms. Like that is not
Yeah.
necessarily going to
Yeah.
increase your enjoyment of the game. For some people, like, so for me, the way I approached it is I don't have the patience for that. And I'm not going to stream myself gathering mushrooms and blue herbs or, blue mushrooms and herbs. I
Yeah.
just learned to kill the monsters with the 3 first aid potions they give you. And that's how I treated
Yeah.
it. And if I died, I died. And if I didn't, I didn't. But I had to approach it super conservatively.
Yeah.
But
And I think there's a point that you can argue that the early days of Monster Hunter, like until they got on, Freedom Unite or whatever,
yeah, Freedom Unite's a good place to start.
those were still finding their footing because those were
Right.
not hugely acclaimed, good selling games.
Right.
They sold enough. So I
Right.
mean, yes, it was a very different breed of Monster Hunter, but that was almost like the early days version. So I think, when it takes off, that's when you can really define this is now they found what the series is, and I think
Right.
that's what defines it. So I think we have pre-success and then post-success, and
Like,
it was just interesting hearing some of the weird mechanics, like seasons, like times, like you couldn't hunt certain monsters during
breeding
certain time. Like
seasons and
that's
stuff like that. What
I
what it
found
came
that
down to
fascinating.
though, it is interesting. It immerses you in the world a little bit more. And that there's this thing available now, and if you want to sleep, you have to spend money to sleep, and money is a very scarce resource. So you don't necessarily want to spend your money to sleep because then you may not have it because you desperately needed it for something else. But if you just keep going in that direction, like the PS2 was an era where you could do weird experimental games and add systems that were just difficult and hard for the sake of being difficult and hard. And
Yeah.
people like there's this whole category of players back then that wanted these weird esoterically hard games. And I would say Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter DOS fit in that perfectly because they were in a lot of ways, especially in DOS, just mean to you for no reason. They didn't have to be that mean to you, but they were. But then you look at Freedom Unite, it still has the meat and potatoes of hunting monsters. It's just you don't have to lose your mind trying to get some ore or to fight the monster you want to fight or to get the resources. Doesn't mean there's
Yeah.
no merit in the struggle for those things, but it's like, is that what you want to put your resources in? You want to find more ways to kick somebody in the nuts over and over again just to be able to fight a Kutku?
Yeah. But I mean, they made the right choice, obviously, because that's when the franchise took off
Now they're making
domestically.
tons,
And
yeah. And World is,
Yeah.
maybe the first big entry in terms of making it even easier to get into things, and it's the best-selling game ever. So,
Yeah.
and I
so
think
some
I saw
argue
today
that
Rise
Rise
is the
is
best-selling game, right? On one console, the best-selling Monster Hunter game ever.
single selling title. It's their best one. So for single platform. So
Rise is like the best one to get into at right now. In my opinion, the best introduction one for someone that's never played it. Before Rise, it was definitely World, and before World, it was 4. For you, I mean.
I still think World and Iceborne is a really good entry point right now for players. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is just like was a heavy hammed or whatever. Like I don't know the phrase, but it's like.
I think it's a good
20
entry
minutes.
point. I don't think it's the best.
It takes itself too seriously, but I don't think it's the best mechanically. I think we could talk about the structure, the game design, and just the way they rolled it out was very interesting. And Rise, like you said, is the party is more intense, it's more free, it's more fun, but it's over faster, and that is disappointing a good many people. But it also was highly concentrated fruit juice. It was very delicious.
If you had to choose, Shepard, like right now, gun to your head, you could only have one of these. Either have the endgame chase of the decos, or you get everything just like Rise is, basically. If you had to choose for your own personal enjoyment, which one would you prefer?
My own personal enjoyment.
Yeah.
I mean, I like having the ability to run on the treadmill. It doesn't have to be a huge power creep. It could be
Just a
1
little
point
bit.
of damage, but it just means I have a thing to go back in and able to do something,
Yeah.
And without having that at all, that just means I have to go back and restart my character.
Yeah.
I like the progression.
I actually
like
am
experiencing
pretty
the
optimistic that
Yeah, it's the
I think that
progression
they
that I
will
love.
add. I think they will add a end game quote unquote system, something whether it's like augments or something like that small little drip for those who want it.
And
I
we've
think
already
that'll
got the
be in
ramp ups.
the ultimate release. I could see them expanding because they have a lot of
think
freedom. They haven't committed to any system really.
tie the
So there's
talismans to the
really.
end of the quest rewards is really all they need to do, in my opinion. If you
So
did
what are your
that,
thoughts on an ultimate release? I'm curious. Do you think it's going to happen? Are you excited for it?
I definitely agree with you in that 2023 is probably the earliest we're going to see whatever next gen Monster Hunter. I just don't see how they're going to be able to get something like that out sooner than that. And they're going to want to take their time and perfect it because they want, I'm sure there's some executive at Capcom that's like, now we have to outsell World. And there's a lot of people that have that pressure. And so they weren't expecting Horizon to be that.
Pressure.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of, it's like, if you think about it, World and Iceborne, this was not Iceborne, but World is a game that they made in 4 years. It's like 4 years.
That's a lot of time, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's that much for the type of game that they made, right? Because like if just look at how much more refined it is compared to previous Monster Hunter games. It was the single biggest evolution in the franchise that we've seen.
It's huge. The endemic life in the worlds and scout flies and tracks and research. And they were planning to do the modular weapon system on top of that. I mean, we still see the bones of those things.
Again, though, you have to keep in mind that this development was also, they had a lot of experience with the PlayStation 4 at this point. Like, so they weren't starting like they are now. Like, I think they had more time with the hardware, and the MT was more
it's
adept to it.
Final big release like that on MT Framework that I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Dragon's Dogma was probably the next biggest behind it. I don't know. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in the MT Framework engine, but I mean, but honestly, both of those games, show the willingness and ambition to create huge worlds like that. I think I'm on team there being a Rise Ultimate. There's generally been an 18-month gap between releases. I could see with as much money behind the franchise as there is, I could see there being a summer release. That'd be about 15 to 18 months. August of 2022 is not insane. And, if that meant we saw a holiday release in 2023 or March of 2024 for HD, I whatever the next one is, I think that could line up pretty well as well.
I think 2024 is more. I think because, like you said, there's going to be a lot of pressure to overcome the success of World, even though I think it's going to be very hard for them to break that, because World had that thing where you had the entirety of the Monster Hunter community super excited about this game because it was really like, it's next gen. It's like, look at these visuals now. It's insane. Looks amazing. Look at all of this stuff. And next time around, I don't think you're going to have quite as much enthusiasm because people are, so it's like World, right? It's the sequel to World. Like, people will get what it is. There's not going to be as much curiosity behind it. So I think it'll be very hard for them to break through. Like, I'm super hyped for whatever they do. I'm getting
of course. Obviously.
Yeah. But
I could totally see a roadmap where next year's Rise Ultimate and then summer, maybe E3-ish type of point, like TGS, like that, a period they reveal Monster Hunter 6 or whatever it is, and they do the same release schedules they did with World, like come in January, early February, which is really good, smart thing to do. Because by that point, we'll have a certain amount of maturity in the console market for the new machines.
People will own the consoles.
I know they'll be able to get the consoles, and I still feel that Capcom, as much as World has sold, I still feel that they're still just an Osaka company. I think they would be nervous to try to do like the holiday season, like head to head with like Sony titles and stuff like that. So I could see them. That, and I think first party are so focused on their exclusives when it comes to the holiday season that they're not going to get a huge amount of marketing support. So I could see like an early 2024, like just blow our minds type of game.
Well, it worked out because I think, Destiny 2 had just come out and people were bouncing off that game super hard. And so to your point, Rurikhan, I think, I mean, it supports your point entirely in that, you had all these Destiny players being like, oh, here's a challenging action game that I could play on stream and I have to grind out these things, give them a thing to do and give them a thing for the community to engage in. I think that was enormous.
I specifically remember King Gathalion, whatever, even tweeting out like an image, and I was like, doesn't this guy just play Destiny? He was tweeting out an image of like a Monster Hunter box. Like, what's happening? There was a lot of people that jumped in on that. It's cool.
Speaking of World and the launch, do you have any stories about your Xbox experiences, Gaijin? Because I play on all the platforms, and my Xbox streams are among the most popular for a number of reasons, but I'd like to hear from you first.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I started playing Look, I'm not an Xbox guy originally.
Yes,
I
you
got
are.
360. Well, I got the 360, right? That was my first Xbox, and that was my first taste of multiplayer and, Xbox Live, Xbox Arcade, and I had a lot of fun with that machine. And then I really had a disdain for the general feeling I was getting from the company
Oh,
going into
everybody
Xbox
did.
One.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so bad. It was so bad.
Xbox
and
One was
now
a
it's
shit
reversed.
show.
Now I'm all like not feeling what Sony's up to. So like it's just kind of interesting. I could bounce around. I play all the games anyways. But I started playing World on PlayStation 4, and I had a good time. I had the PlayStation 4 Pro. I bought the Rathalos Edition one. And one thing that annoyed me to no end was the damn fan. Like, because I know that
wow.
I know the PS4. The thing is I'm in a small room, right? So my room is about 8 feet by 7 feet. It's a
If
small
you tried
room.
if you tried really hard, could you almost touch both walls? If you stood in the center.
Yeah,
And-
almost, yeah, almost, yeah.
Okay, not a big
Very
room.
close.
Not a large
Not a big room. So I have the console in here with me, and that thing was loud as hell. And so I wasn't even able to make, when I was doing tutorial videos, it was frustrating because I would want to,
God.
even though it was scripted,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk while I was playing it, right? Because that
Sure.
makes it much easier to sync it, but I couldn't because you'd hear in the background the entire time. I tried putting the thing on the ground. I tried putting a blanket near it. I tried shielding it. It would
I can
pick it up.
imagine.
That
I can imagine.
Also, I did not have the dynamic mic. I was an idiot and I was using a condenser mic, and that thing will pick up everything.
I can
So
hear
it
a
was
mouse fart from across the room is what I usually say.
exactly. It's actually kind of like side thing. If you have a condenser mic, it's kind of funny. Like you put in the earphones and you just have it on, and you can hear everything on the other side of the house.
Gives you
It's almost like a
super hearing.
superhuman power. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. The kid in me gets giddy when I can hear it. But like, so I had gripes with that experience, and I had some bad experiences with just some of the player bases of people on PSN. Like my daughter had some bad experiences with PS 4, I think it was, because she was playing Minecraft and she would get messages, really obscene, very inappropriate
Really?
messages from
Wow.
random players after she beat their ass in Minecraft. Like they had like those like versus games
The
where
little
you like
arenas
knock
and
each other
stuff,
off with
yeah.
thing. And it was just, I had to disable all messages. It was just ridiculous. Granted, that might exist on Xbox. I wouldn't know. I turned it all off anyways. So when the Xbox One X was announced, and I was in love with World, and I still love the game. I know people think I don't. I adore Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. I wanted to play the best possible version of it. And so when I found out about the Xbox, the One X looked sexy. I heard it was quiet. I saw that it performed better. I'm like, I gotta get one of these. And so I got it specifically for World. And I played it and it was so good. Like it was quiet. It performed incredibly well compared to the PS4 Pro. But most of all, it was quiet as hell. And then from there, it just went on. Like I fell in love with the machine. I started playing a bunch of games, realized that, most games outside exclusives are released on both anyways.
Right.
So I was getting what I felt was the better versions. I have a gaming PC, but I just don't like the friction of a gaming PC. I don't like having to, the boot is long or there's
It feels
updates
different.
and driver
It feels
updates.
really different when you play on PC. It doesn't always feel like you're playing like a game. It feels like you're playing a computer. Isn't that
Yeah, and I like
it feels that way.
I want to be disconnected from the world. I don't want anything to distract me. Or
You don't
I know
want
you can
Windows
turn all that
updates
stuff
popping up.
off. I know you can turn all that stuff off, but it's not the same. It's a mentality thing. So, like, I was just sold in, and then gosh, then Game Pass came out, and for someone like me who I'm a single father and I work, I don't have a whole lot of time. So like, I don't mind playing, and I play a lot of Monster Hunter. So trying out other games that are like AAA or whatever, or even not AAA indie titles late, or just at my own leisure is great. So for me, just give me a Game Pass subscription and give me a Monster Hunter, and I'm settled for the year. Like the only thing I might have to buy is like a Capcom game or Square Enix game here or there or something. Like I'm good, or a Nintendo game. So I fell in love with it, and then of course Phil Spencer took over, and the whole mentality of the company changed, and
So much better.
I
Yep.
really like the feeling I get from them, and some of that is me giving into their marketing, I'm sure, but I genuinely like what I'm seeing and feeling from them. So
I mean, if they kept doing what they're doing,
It's
it's
like
great.
it's not
So
bad.
I'm not
Microsoft in
an,
general, like, and I'm an
I'm
Apple guy, but I love what Microsoft is. I love the CEO of Microsoft right now. I find him fascinating. Their strategy of being the open box platform and working with everybody, and just, I don't know, there's just something about it. So like, and then I just said, it's gonna be my main platform. I fell in love. So I got an Xbox Series S for Yuna and an X for me. We played lots of games on it. We played World and Iceborne on it, and it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So
it's like, just on the topic of Phil Spencer, I'm not even an Xbox guy. I own PlayStation. Like I've been on PlayStation since the 3. And I pretty much just do PlayStation because, you get a little bit of your backlog, particularly now with the PS4 and the PS5, right? So it's like, I'm not even an Xbox guy, and I'm just like, I'm a huge fan of Phil Spencer. It's just like,
yeah,
I think what Phil
I
did for Xbox is friggin' legendary.
it's
Like, he completely turned it
unbelievable.
around. And it makes me
But I
happy because,
actually,
like, the better the Xbox is doing, and the more competition PlayStation has,
Right.
the more reason it has to be
Sony
better.
and Nintendo have to slowly try and, even the playing field to some degree. And I think, the games with PS Plus that come with the PS5 is a direct response to the fact that most people are getting Xbox with Game Pass and like, hey, I've got 100 plus, 200 plus free games, and I buy a PlayStation 5 and I get what?
You get
yeah.
the
Well, the
you
thing is,
get
like with
that
Game Pass,
collection.
like
Yeah.
I haven't touched Game Pass in a few months, but I don't care. It's still going to pay for itself. Like I don't have to play it every month. Like I'm going to play a few awesome games on it a year. That it more than pays for it. So like I'm
Yeah.
happy about that, and it does lead to more discovery. Like I'm more likely to try out smaller games just to try them out.
Yeah. You can
That I
guilt-free play
normally
a
wouldn't.
game for 2 or 3 hours, understand the mechanics, enjoy yourself, and then never
Yeah.
play
Then
it
never
again.
touch it
And there's
again.
no problem. You don't have to. I
But then
mean, you
there
don't have
is,
to feel bad about it.
yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
be honest, there was this weird thing where I started getting upset at my PlayStation 4, and it's not Sony's fault, I don't think.
You got like an
But like
emotional attachment
I
to
started
PlayStation 4.
realizing that like
I
I started
don't like
realizing
you,
that people wanted
PlayStation.
no,
A
well they like yeah, well
relationship isn't
people,
the same. You don't look at me the way you used to.
the thing is like I realized that all my viewers almost everybody was playing on PlayStation, right? So if I wanted to do a weapon tutorial, I wasn't going to say press A, B, and X. Like it would screw everybody up. I would have to say press triangle or circle or whatever. So I kept doing my tutorials on the PlayStation 4 despite having a machine that played it not only much
You
better
resented
performance-wise,
it.
looked
Hated
pretty,
it.
was quiet as shit. And I had to work with this damn airplane. And I mean, granted, they released PlayStation 4 Pros afterwards, which were more quiet, but the one that I had was just bad. And
Mine wasn't great.
so I started resenting the machine. I started hating the machine. And what made it even worse was you get toxic people in every camp, but the amount of hateful, just like weird fanboy comments that I would get from the Sony group whenever I put a video on that had an X. Oh my, oh, you're playing an Xbox, you loser, blah, 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 blah. You're the only one in Japan ever playing on it, blah. It just made me more emotionally say, you know what? Screw this Sony thing. I don't want it. Like, I don't like the reaction I'm getting from people. I don't like the hardware. I don't like when I sold that machine, I sold the Rathalos Special Edition. They knocked $100 off the price tag because of the scuffs around the HDMI port. Because
Wow.
the design of that thing is just, they slanted the back of the machine. I don't know why. And so if you're a person who needs to take out the HDMI cable, man, you can't find the damn port anywhere, because like, why are you having? It's an IO input. Make it flat, for God's sake. So I started resenting the machine for that, and I sold it, and I didn't get a lot of money for that. And then of course I hate the DualShock because every time I sit down to play, I don't have battery.
See,
and I'm like,
It's got an always-on touchpad that drains itself.
You need to understand that
So-
Gaijin at this point resents PlayStation so much that he had an opportunity to buy a PlayStation 5 and he chose not to buy it.
Oh, whoa! That's
Like,
a
not-
level.
wait.
Not even from
No,
a
wait,
scalper.
We'll have to phrase this a different way. I know that there's going to be some games on PlayStation 5 that I want to play. Like, there's no doubt about it. So even though I don't want the machine, like I don't like huge stuff. Obviously, I'm in a small room. I've heard it's quiet, which is great. but I'm also just like, I'm not invested in that ecosystem at all right now.
Controller still dies all the time, by the way.
Yeah, it
It'll
does.
last
Good
you 2
God,
nights.
really?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the cable is
horrible.
like this long.
Uh,
And it won't charge
So,
if the
like-
machine is off. And you can't
No,
put
no,
it in
well,
sleep
that-
mode
it
because it'll
does-
die.
and if
It
you,
does that
record
now.
a video on it, it doesn't even have a format that Mac supports, and I'm
It-
a Mac user, so like
Wait,
I
wait,
can't
wait,
even
wait.
use the capture video from it.
I
You
need to
can-
correct one thing. They fixed the thing of it not charging while it's on standby. It
No,
mine at least
I
does.
can't put mine in standby
Did you-
because it'll
Really?
crash. It almost died once. The only reason it came back to life was because of a firmware update. I almost had to send it in. I had to put it into recovery mode to update the firmware so it would even turn on. So I always fully turn it off, and it will not charge fully turned off.
No, I've never had. I mean, I had the issue where it wouldn't charge when it was on rest
No.
mode.
Standby, you're Russian roulette every time you put that thing in standby.
Dude, my console has been in standby every single time, and I move this console a lot. Like it goes to my home, comes back to the office, my home, back to the office.
Go to Vegas.
Every time.
Go to the casino. Actually, no, don't. You've used up all of your luck. You still have a functioning PlayStation 5.
I feel bad. I just thought of some more reasons why I started resenting PlayStation. I want to say it because I think people are.
This is something between you and like a licensed therapist, Gaijin. I don't know that either of us are really certified to help you.
No.
Keep
Like,
going,
I want to say
going.
because I don't want people to say like, oh, there's only one or two reasons, and then he wrote it off. What an idiot! Like, there's more. Like, okay, so like, I was
The
just
airing
getting
of
into
grievances against Sony. You will hear from me.
Well, the thing is, it's not all Sony's fault. So I live in Japan, where PC parts cost almost double that they do anywhere else in the world. I just got a new 4K HDMI 2.1 monitor, and it cost me, what would it be, $1,500. The same monitor in the US will sell for $900. So like, my game PC cost me way more than it should have. But the thing is I had a 1440p high refresh rate, nice monitor, and that's what I played on. Xbox One X says, okay, we'll support. I mean, most of the games were internal resolution was 1440p anyways, right, for the 4K stuff. So they added it. They just okay. We'll just hit the button and we added it as an available output. Like, have fun. Sony, because they're invested in their 4K TV business, and
you get 1080p.
It's stupid because the thing is the 1440p industry is so small and niche anyways that it makes me feel more resentful that the fact that they said, even though it's not going to affect our major sales of TVs, no, we got our TVs, we're not going to support 1440p, even though the games are freaking rendering in 1440p. And so like when I played the PlayStation 4 on my monitor, it looked like shit because it didn't look as good as the Xbox because it was rendering in 1080.
Yeah.
And then you get things like I was looking at.
It's like that. That show that they go on TV. What is it? The one where the guys the pawn shop thing, and it's like
Pawn Stars, right?
The Pawn Stars, yeah. And it's like you get there with your 1440p monitor, and your PlayStation 4 goes, best I can do for you is 1080p.
That's best I got. Best offer, 1080p.
All right, man.
1440, 720. Wait, no. Sorry, you crashed. Recovery mode, 480p only. You'll be happy to know, Gaijin, by the way, PS5 is one of the most finicky consoles ever to get video capture off of. I had to completely strip down my entire like switcher and video input system because it did not play happy at all. Maybe it works for you, Rurikhan, but no,
because you have like an HDMI matrix type situation. Okay, you have a splitter, yeah. I gave up on that. I was like, no.
You had to get rid of it. It works for everything
cables.
except PS5. It was fine. It was only the PS5 entered the situation, and it's like, no, I'm going to ruin everyone's day.
Well, I still got two or three more grievances I have to air. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant here.
No,
okay, so like,
get an over.
Another one was.
I have to do it longer. Get ready.
So like, okay, I have an Elgato, so I don't have problems capturing video and stuff, right? But I'm also a very excitable Monster Hunter fanatic, and I want to see more people creating content. And videos and stuff like that, because people are interesting and they make really interesting stuff. So I like the idea that a console can capture video, like the new ones, right? But Sony PS5 captures in WebM extension. What the hell?
You can change it to MP4 though. That is an option. You can capture an MP4.
Oh, you can.
Yeah,
You
I think I just changed mine, and I don't even remember.
You are correct. It will default as WebM for whatever reason, but there is an MP4 option.
Was that
I
always
recorded
there?
I recorded a bunch of Returnal footage that I never used, and it's an MP4.
Okay, well that's
can
good
do
to hear because I thought it was WebM only, at least at the launch, and I was like, that's
The
just
PS5 at least is. I don't know what I did for PS4, but I know the PS5 at least, and I would assume now
PS4
for
was
PS4.
MP4 as well because I recorded some stuff.
yeah.
off
So I
of
was
it.
like, why are they using this stupid codec? And like, I can't even edit that in Final Cut Pro if I wanted to, anyways. And it looks,
Oh.
I'm like, I'm
Codec's
just like
not
you know,
being
just
compliant. I've like you've got one job in your video editor. That means I should be able to import any video I drag onto it. That drives me up the wall too. You
that
had one
upset
less
me.
grievance.
Oh well, then the other thing is like having to pay, and this is a grievance I have with Nintendo as well. But having to pay to have my save data backed up.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
You know,
like I pay to get the cloud stuff anyways, right? Like I have my Xbox Gold or whatever, and I've got my Switch Online. I hated playing for PSN Network because one, I don't play online a lot, especially with Monster Hunter. Even that, I would have loved to just not have my account online. Like I don't need the online port. You cannot have a cloud save unless you pay the money. Switch does the same. Xbox, I got my cloud saves from 360 are still there. It's crazy.
oh
And
wow.
I don't pay for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and they don't charge any
Microsoft
user
has,
for cloud saves.
They have a much better server infrastructure. They also have better like download speeds and whatnot.
Yeah. I think the save backups are free on Silver too. You don't even need gold for Microsoft.
You don't need
I
anything.
think
Yeah,
that is included,
just get a free
And
account
it
and you've
is
got
it
free
is
backup.
mysterious though. The way like the Microsoft system, I do wish you had more ability to see what the save is, when it was, manually back it up. I will say to Sony's credit, their system really lets you manage it. On
So
Microsoft,
you can save scum. Is that what you're saying?
No. So I was doing a series of speed runs where I was doing only the Iceborne content. And
Oh,
my
okay.
my
Yeah.
speedrun console of choice was the Xbox One X. And I would have to go into offline mode, delete my save, go online, sync from online save, and then play that way. Whereas with
Yeah,
PSN, I
it's
could have
not.
put it on a USB stick, and you can't do that on Xbox. So there's one
Yeah,
small side. But I mean, at the same time, it's free, so
yeah.
can't complain that much. But the One X was the superior way to play Monster Hunter World on console. And I will say, I have the most fun when I play random SOSs on the Xbox to this day. It just the environment and the feeling.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because it was smaller, like in terms of market size, but
Well, they had
the
Game
player.
Pass. Monster Hunter World
Yeah,
actually had a
was in
huge
Game
install
Pass.
base because of Game Pass. And I think
The
a lot of
quality
those
is
people
like
ended
I
up getting
don't.
Iceborne.
Yeah, I can't speak to the quality of the player random base and Sony because I just don't play it
Skill
online.
wise,
But
it
Xbox
wasn't always
was good.
maxed.
Like the
But
people were pretty
it's
fun.
fun. It hits different because you have sort of the feeling of like when you played Try, of a bunch of people learning and experiencing Monster Hunter again for the first time. That's the sort of feeling and attitude I get when I enter into an Xbox lobby. In that, like, I'm not, I don't need any help necessarily, but I'm not out necessarily to find the best players in the world. I'm looking for the players that are looking to have a good time and have a lot of fun. And I just
Yeah.
get that impression for some reason, even though it's pixels and I'm not even using voice comms, nobody's saying anything or doing anything, but there is like a
I agree.
like a
It feels
celebration of life on Xbox. It's just a different atmosphere, and I don't know what it is or why it is that way. Whereas I would say the tryhards were a bit more on PS4 and definitely on PC. Like maximum, like tryhard is PC.
Oh yeah. So that's my story of how I came to fall out of love with
That's
Sony and
intense.
in love
Do you
with
feel
Xbox.
better? Do you feel like a little like a sense of relief?
I
closure?
do, and the thing is, like, I will buy a PlayStation 5. I'm hoping that they'll have a smaller version by the time they make me buy it.
Hopefully,
Like
this is slim, yeah.
I bought PlayStation 4 specifically for Bloodborne, so
Yep.
I was happy. Like I don't regret my purchase at all. I'm very happy, and I played a bunch of games. Like I enjoyed Detroit and a bunch of other games as well. So like I'm very happy, and I thought it was a great console. But it's just one little factors here and there all piling up and just making me And I don't like the corporate vibe I'm getting from Sony recently.
It's interesting you
with some
call
of
it a California company. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I just never, because you can kind of tell, like, Microsoft is definitely a US company trying to, please, like, Western US
Mm,
office. But whereas with Sony, you just see them changing course and it just doesn't make sense for what you expect from what you would have seen from like a PlayStation 2 era or even a PlayStation 3 era. Somewhere around the PS4 era, it started to change, and it felt like there was a lot less pressure to do really great innovation and instead just do major tentpole blockbuster games like your God of War and stuff like that, rather than go out and take risks. You know,
and it's just kind
so
of weird. It's psychological, but it's kind of interesting seeing the. I could be wrong here, but I used to get the vibe that the Xbox was in Microsoft Studios was like shooters and like the jock boys playing and
well, they
killing
definitely have
people,
them. They do.
Yeah.
They
and they
definitely
have
there's
them
an
right.
aspect to that. Yeah.
Where Sony felt a little bit more diverse. This could just be me making up feelings.
No. I mean, that was definitely true for a while. I mean,
But
you're
now
not
I
wrong.
feel like it's reverse. I see Sony stuff and I see violence, I see shooters, and I see like just like competitive in your face stuff where now the Microsoft, at least how they're showcasing their portfolio is so much more diverse. I feel like it's almost like they flipped in my mind.
Yeah.
Again, it's psychological.
I never thought
Like
about it like it, but you're right. I mean, with Game Pass especially, like the range of games, and those games are being obviously, I mean, in a way, they're like micro published by Microsoft. Like my understanding is the way Game Pass works is you're going to put our game on our service. We're going to give you the equivalent of 500,000 sales or 1,000,000
yeah.
sales or something like that. And then we have it for this period of time. And most publishers that I know have spoken about it say they almost always break even on development from their deal with Microsoft alone. And then everything else they get on top of that is profit. And then eventually the game goes away and maybe you buy it because it's your new game, or at the very least, you broke even. But like,
Yeah, and if you want to buy it, you can get it cheaper as well, which is great. Like it's going to
yeah,
go away. It's been here for like over a year, but if you really love it, go ahead and buy it and we'll give you, 20%, 30% off.
like they had this PC game on PC Game Pass. I think it's called Days of Horror. And it's like a Junji Ito inspired PC game, like that looks like it's on an old Commodore 64 with like, like the little pixelated graphics. That's on Game Pass. Like, how the hell did that get negotiated? How the hell did that get released? But
It's
it did.
They
Yeah.
do negotiate a lot of like indie games and stuff like that
It's
to put on Game
crazy.
Pass,
Like,
which
how would
is
they even hear about that? Like, did they approach them? Like, who approached who? How does that even show up there? It's a cool game,
Yeah.
by the way. It's a kind of like a randomized roguelike RPG, Junji Ito horror. You get, I can't even explain it other than if you have PC Game Pass, you could run it on like
Yeah.
a laptop from 10 years ago. So it's kind of a cool game.
Yeah, but again, this is not just me falling out of love with Sony, but it's also me falling back in love with Microsoft. It's again, like I said, like I love what they're doing as a corporation, like the way they're changing their direction.
This
Post
comment
Steve
section is
Ballmer.
going to be something else, guys. And you
I know,
realize
right?
you're just gonna. This is just gonna be hell for
Yeah, they're
a
gonna
lot of
rap
people.
on
I
me
mean, I
pretty
think I've
hard.
taken a relatively neutral stance. Hopefully, nobody's gonna be coming after me. But Jesus,
Well, at
like,
least I'm willing
you've
to
laid the
admit that
line.
my issues are emotional and they're personal,
It
right?
came
And they're
down to
not.
this devil Rathalos PS4 in your room causing you hell. And the thing is, nobody can ever truly appreciate unless you've done it. Is audio quality, and that you sat down
yeah.
and you recorded the video and you recorded the audio and you go to check it out after you've added it up and
Terrible.
you're like, this audio is unusable and I got to do this all over again.
That'll
Kiss
cause
my
you to
ass.
hate a lot of things.
You
Yeah.
don't know anything until you've experienced the hell that is a condenser
And people are like,
microphone.
what? And people are like, well, you have your PlayStation under your TV. You never need to worry about the HDMI. I'm like, no, my situation, I have to change. I'm not buying 5 Elgatos, which funny enough, I have 5 Elgatos now. Like I got sick of changing out the HDMIs, but like, man, that was
People-
painful. That like I
people
would
don't
scrape my hand
realize-
on that plastic. It hurt.
People don't realize that, particularly for content creators, we have to move stuff around quite often. We have to unplug
Oh, no, like-
cables all the damn time.
My Series X is sitting at the end of my desk.
Charging
Just
station for your controllers. I'm like, yeah, in my 8x6 room, I'm putting in a charging station. Kidding me? That being said, I did manage to score a pre-order of that insanely huge and amazing Fatalis statue that they
Oh, no
announced
way.
yesterday.
That thing is just
Yeah.
ridiculously expensive. Why would you do this?
$300.
Where's it going to go? You have no room.
I know. I decided I don't have any storage in the room, so I told my daughter. I said I have to get like a dresser thing with storage, like for this side of the room.
Your bed is right there. We can see it. It's in the fridge.
I know.
Nobody else can see it, Shepard. Just you and me. Only you.
I'm sorry,
but
never mind.
I'll put the Fatalis on top of that. It'll be great. No, that was my bonding experience with my daughter, and there's just something special because that was her first Monster Hunter mainline game, and us playing all the way through Fatalis and having such a good time with it. Like that to me, it's like I need that. I'm not a guy who collects stuff, but I want that memory as a statue. That would be cool.
Fatalis was cool as hell in the world, and it was definitely.
It was his best iteration.
I think you could make the argument that it's the best end monster in any game. The only thing that comes even close is, I guess, Gogmazios, maybe? Because he's just such a cool guy.
Fatalis.
Talca was awesome.
I love them, but Fatalis is a whole another breed. They really raised the bar for.
I mean, you do rip a Dragonator out of Gogmazios' back and then shoot him with it. You gotta respect that. That's pretty good. I mean, but both of them are very good. I would say Fatalis, I mean, has the biggest build up and proper storyline backing it up. And as a fight, I guess he's probably one of the most challenging.
I'm gonna dig my grave, and I'm gonna shut up about Sony.
Oh no!
There's one other thing they did. Which upset me. I'm sorry. This is gonna be it. Okay.
So everyone in the comments, just so you know, thumbs up if you like Sony. Thumbs down if they've caused you grievances. Leave a comment.
I don't need to hijack.
Why do I have to suffer for this?
We finally get one of my favorite content creators on the show as a guest, and here I am going off about Sony. I feel like an idiot. But
we'll just invite him again.
Let me just get this, and then this will be
it.
This one will be a good one that Shepard, I think you will be able to understand this one.
Here we go.
So because Sony is a California company now, they decided, hey, we're going to start reversing what's confirm and what's cancel. So now the X, which is culturally cancel in Japan, in fact, it is the freaking word for no, batsu, and maru is the cultural sign and symbol we use for yes, is now reversed. So why they took a problem that people dealt with, that there's a cultural difference between confirm and no because of the way the buttons are called and they look, and they made a problem out of it. Like, why the hell would they do that? So you don't even have the option to remap it now. Did they get
rid of the option to remap?
Yeah, they took it out as well. They doubled down. And because they're idiots. And so they said, like, so now the game is saying press X to say okay. That is so unintuitive to someone who speaks Japanese.
I'm gonna be real.
I'm just like, what are you smoking?
That one almost feels like a dick measuring contest where they're just going like, no, Japan,
you're not going to tell us what to
do. You listen to us now.
Leads.
You press X to go forward, and Japan's like, but why? Yeah. We've always used circle. He's like, you do. We're a California company now, so now you use X like the rest of it. It's really dumb.
So that was really one of the other straws. So that and people don't understand. They're like, dude, it's like people you'll get used to. I'm like, it's part of the freaking language of this country. You go on TV shows, you do anything, you put a circle if it's yes and an X if it's no. Like that is just how the culture is here linguistically. The
triangle was like the map or something. Like all the buttons.
It's just those were abstract, but like Marubatsu,
X and O are very clear.
That's very specific. Everything in my daily life here goes by that.
I almost wish it was like that. The Japanese way was almost like that in the West as well, because that would be so much better for me to swap between PlayStation and Nintendo because A is confirmed.
So like on Xbox, it's confusing because it's interesting. So you
flip
press,
it from the Switch.
A and B is flipped, right?
Yeah.
So but the thing is there's no association in my head linguistically about A and B. Like I can get used to that, but when you tell me press Batsu or press X to confirm, that is so. It's like saying give me the thumbs down if you like this video. Like it seems totally backwards, and I said, you know what, screw
thumbs
this
down if a PS4 is your sleep paralysis demon.
Anyway, I'm gonna shut up. No more talking about that. Let's get back to Monster Hunter.
I'm gonna forcefully push us away from that.
Yes, please. I'm done. I'm not talking about this again.
On the Microsoft, you could connect the adaptability controller to a potato, and you could slap the potato, and that could be X.
I'm blaming
That's
Shepard
the
for this,
positive.
by the way. You're the one who told me. Tell me about you and Xbox, and
I just
you set
wanted to
me off
hear
on a
about
rant.
your Xbox hunting experiences, not like 10 years of therapy being unpacked about what Sony did to you personally and what keeps you up at night. I
I'm
didn't
so
know.
sorry.
I was
I'm
like,
so
man, I have a
sorry.
lot of fun time playing Monster Hunter multiplayer on the Xbox. How about you, Gaijin Hunter? Let me tell you, I was 6 years old when I saw my first Sony picture, and I've never stopped being pissed off since.
That's-
I'm gonna buy every single stock of Sony, and I'm gonna bankrupt that company to the ground.
Jesus Christ. So,
For the last thing I
Shepard,
see, this company will be in flames.
hey,
I
Shepard,
give you thumbs up, Sony, which really means thumbs down. Kiss my ass.
And I'm gonna make that this video in 1440p resolution.
Yeah, it's
just for
1440p only. No, I'm cool, man. That's great.
Okay.
Shepard.
I'm glad we were able to do that. I mean,
what's your favorite monster?
I play, like I said, if I go back to an old Monster Hunter, I like to play for you because in G rank, it's just like the perfect level of difficulty. I like the virus monster.
You didn't hear me. Favorite
Oh,
monster.
I'm sorry, you were left. My favorite monster?
Yes.
Nergigante, but before Iceborne, before he learned his stylish pose. Honestly, Nergigante is the best monster ever created. Until Clutch Claw. But before Clutch Claw, he's the best monster ever created. And I love him.
Where do you fall with Nergigante and Ruiner Nergigante? Are they the same to you, or is there one flavor that you like more?
They're different monsters. And Ruiner is, I guess he's cool to look at. He's not fun to fight, but he's cool to look at. It's just the truth. He's not a fun fight. You know,
I don't think he's that much of an unfun fight. I don't.
He screams and he pounds like every 20 to 30 seconds. And when he gets to very low life, he does instant arm hooks that you have like no human reaction time to ever possibly go against. I'm saying you're asking me to compare Nergigante to Ruiner Nergigante. You may have all sorts of positive memories about Ruiner, but I don't want to sound like an asshole. There's no way you fought more Nergigante or Ruiner than me. It's not possible.
No.
I'm sorry. It's not. It's
Nah.
not. And I'm just telling you, between the two of them, Nergigante is categorically, potentially one of the best monsters ever designed in the series.
Well, he's also more diverse than Ruiner. I'll give him that as well.
What about
He's
Arch-Tempered Nergigante?
Oh, you don't like the Palm Slam? If you use Charge Blade, now you do, it probably feels pretty bad.
No, I was talking about that pounce thing that he does that was like almost instant.
Yeah, he does the Palm Slam. Yeah, he does the Palm Slam. Yeah, that wasn't good design. That wasn't good design. I'm talking about normal Nergigante. Just the normal guy, our spiky friend. Arch-Tempered.
I totally agree, though. I think Nergigante is a great monster. It's like the theme song, the hunt design, the visual design, just everything about it just was, and even from a game design, like I love the fact that as a flagship monster, their armor may not be the end all, but it's
Pretty
still
good.
a damn decent set. And
It was very good.
it's going to help you get through the end of the game, which is what I think a flagship monster should be. And unfortunately, is not always the case.
Yeah,
I'm looking at you, Magnamalo. I'm looking at him, his armor.
I still like his dual blades. And
no, I like his weapons, but not his armor.
You don't like the Hellfire Cloak? It's fun in multiplayer.
No.
I used Hellfire Cloak with the gun lance. Even I had a Hellfire Cloak gun lance build, and it was a lot of fun because whenever you did the what's it called, ground splitter, it would drop the mine. So I was just like, it's an extra 60 damage or whatever. It's great.
I beat 1.0 with Magnamalo armor and Switch Axe. It was great. It's the base because both wire bug moves drops the little mines, and so I was using an exhaust Switch Axe. They were constantly on the ground from either the mines or being KO'd. But the reason I like Nergigante is, he teaches you how to play the game in that you have to be aggressive. You have to spot things that are changing about the monster. So he's in his normal state. You wound him. From the wound grows white spines, which take more damage. And if you break them, he topples over. And so you're directly reinforced to be focusing weak spots, and then especially focusing weak spots, because if you don't do that, then of course they grow black. Sometimes it causes him to deal more damage. His spines, if he does his paw slam, I'm not sure if you ever noticed, if he's got spines on his arm and he does his paw slam, he actually creates a separate AoE. It's so cool. like a little extra area comes out just from his one design of his arm being wounded. Just that one though, not the other one. He's just the
He's
best monster in the game. And I still do like base game world speed runs from time to time, and he's almost always him or Tio are the highlights of whenever I do a run. For me personally, because I just look forward to that hunt when you're in your speed run gear, like you're getting by with like 100 armor and like some crappy ore or bone weapon.
So are you really excited to see that he's going to be quite predominant, actually?
Yeah,
featured in stories too.
Yeah, he's definitely something in stories too. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming we'd be able to get him eventually. I'm assuming you're gonna have to beat the game and then you'll get him that way. Like he's gonna be like a Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, if Velgana is like a legendary Pokemon, if she's rideable, then he's gotta be.
Yeah,
and that's gotta be fun.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I plan to use him. I hope he takes on weird characteristics when you give him some sort of an element. Like it'd be fun to see like a water Nergigante to see like how that changes him in any way. Well, it's possible, right? I mean, I remember playing stories. It's probably been I think it's been 2 years now since I did my playthrough, but I think I had like a water Kezu and stuff like that. And everything just kind of works naturally, right? Like you're like, how does this just work? But in stories, it just does. When you start doing gene therapy, or whatever they call gene fusion,
editing,
gene breeding, gene editing.
CRISPR.
So I think that'll be a fun game.
It's like
live editing their DNA.
It's like some friggin' eugenics operation over there.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's your favorite like new monster in Rise? Do you have one and how come?
I mean, the trial of Demo Magnum Malo to me almost outshines anything that you could have done in the main game.
Oh wow.
I still have that demo. I still plan to play it again someday when I'm like looking for content.
I've never played the Demo Magnum Malo. It was that challenging?
Ooh. You missed a little tidbit of history. You gotta see if you can get yourself that demo some way. I'd like message somebody at, in Capcom Osaka, be like, hey, can you hook me up with a code or something? Because that is close to the most difficult hunt most people will ever do in their lives.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there may be specific examples that stand outside of that 140 guild quests, maybe, but even then, at least you got 50 minutes.
Wow. Does it compare to like the Super Bracky from 3G?
I mean, you technically had 50 minutes on that one and your choice of gear. Super Bracky's hard.
The biggest problem of that quest was definitely the timer, because that timer just keeps you. You have to be aggressive. If you're not aggressive, you're done.
And you got no armor skills, right? You're just
nothing.
Pretty much naked.
It's hard to compare it directly to Super Bracky. Because it's less about surviving, although it certainly is about surviving, but it's about dealing enough damage in 15 minutes. And he's.
How would you feel if they added that as like an event quest? Like bring him back with
if every week they just gave us. I would love it if we had like a freaking
15-minute timer Magnum Malo super.
No, like a super Pookie, like a 15-minute AT Pookie. He's got the moveset. Honestly.
Yeah.
They redesigned all the monsters so they're all fun to fight against. Like that's what I want. Like, when I was looking for content, back in the day, like it would be like, we're going to rotate through all of the AT monsters and just fight them over and over again because they're just fun fights to do,
Yeah, I think that's where all three of us are still left unsatisfied with the event quest. There's so much they can do with what they have already.
It's a waste of time.
It wouldn't take much effort for them to. I mean, it would take effort, obviously, but it's not the same as like they don't have to create like a tempered version. They could just tweak the values a little bit, make them faster, make them hit harder, add a new time limit. And be all good.
They've already done quests like that, like the Utsuchi challenges or whatever. They're harder than the regular monsters, so they just need to tweak something up, just like they did for those quests in an event quest, because his number is even higher.
So
it'd be fun.
I've got a direct comment I have to do. It's based on a Silken Era interview they had with Ryozo today, and it was discussing. The headline was about the DLC model in Rise versus World and in the previous games, and it was going over the paid DLC for cosmetics. Just came out a couple hours ago, and I want to be clear. Like, if they want to help monetize the game by selling cosmetic DLC, fine. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, it's completely optional. It's not a big deal. Even if they're not giving us new layered stuff in game as often as they used to. Also don't really care. No big deal. However, In the article, they said the reason why we wanted to have paid DLC was because we did not want to have players that would have a challenge getting the cosmetic DLC through beating the event quests. Does that
Yeah,
make
that
any?
doesn't.
I need to go look at that interview. Jesus Christ, that is terrible.
Let me see.
Yeah,
I'm
that feels like the wrong
Because like
interpretation.
I remember just the sense of achievement that I got from when I first did Extremoth, and I was like, yeah, I get to use this crazy armor from Final Fantasy XIV because I beat this really challenging fight, and I have this new title option.
Okay,
which is
I'm gonna read the quote here then. So
yeah,
it says,
I've got it right here. As you are aware, is that where you're going to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So as you are aware, in titles prior to Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, although I would say all the way up the world, cosmetic content was mainly available as a reward for free event quests. However, as character makeup and equipment design can now be expressed more richly in the game, which is true, and as a way to make it easier to obtain cosmetic content outside of quests, we've also started distributing paid cosmetic content from Monster Hunter World. For the same reason, Monster Hunter Rise also offers paid content, but we are also increasing the degree of freedom of expression for character makeup, the number of equipment for layering implemented in the game. So we are focusing on both free and paid content. But
I want to see. I desperately want to see the Japanese
version. Yeah.
I mean, all right, let's
stuff like
be
this
fair.
reeks of nuance, and I'm like,
if he was referring to the Final Fantasy Extremeth layered set, that's still a flex if you have that.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Exactly.
still, there's people out there that don't have it. You know, I'm sure there's still people that whenever they go back to Astera, they still hear the Final Fantasy music. It's possible. Not convinced, but it's possible. There's probably a couple people out there that still hear it. Didn't beat the normal Behemoth, and that's neither here nor there. And I get it in that regard, but it's and I agree with you, Gaijin. There's definitely some nuance from the Japanese we're missing, 100%. But it's just funny to hear them being like, we don't want to challenge you guys in the event quests, so we're going to let you buy it instead. And meanwhile, we've gotten the easiest.
It sounds totally wrong.
Yeah. And
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
it's like this is something that I brought up before as well in the podcast, and that is like, I don't mind cosmetic DLC. I do feel that the balance right now is a little bit skewed because like we have
more on DLC than the game.
Yeah, we have like 3 or 4 updates that we're going to be getting in the next couple of months until the end of August, and it's like all of them say DLC in capital letters there, and we all know that is their thing for the paid DLC. And it's like paid DLC and 1 event quest, more paid DLC and another 1 or 2 event quests. And it's just like, come on, man! And these event quests haven't even been that great.
I'm going to give you my guess and my interpretation of what he was trying to say, because generally I can look at translated stuff from Japanese to English and kind of guess what he was saying, like backwards programming. I could be wrong because this reads really bad. I mean, there's no denying that. I think what they were trying to say here, and this is my guess, is that cosmetic content in Monster Hunter, at least according to Tsuchimoto-san, has never been that big of a deal because it was just a different color. It was just a different thing. It wasn't like an item that you would sell. Like there wasn't that much production and quality behind it. Like it wasn't that rich of content that's something that you would try to sell. So we just gave it away as a freebie for some event quest. But starting 1 month from Monster Hunter World, they were able to start making things that were actually of value and interesting. So that they decided, okay, we're going to start doing some cosmetic stuff in World for paid DLC. So now they're saying, okay, well, we got to do something for the people who are not going to buy it. So in this game, we've made cosmetic, like layered armor. They added like the 2-tone color changing that you can do now. Getting layered armor is much easier. It looks more rich. You could do more visual stuff with it. So the way I think what he was trying to say here is actually putting the focus on, we have paid DLC cosmetic like we did at World because we feel that it's rich enough to be sold. But in the same time, we've made the armors and the layered armors in the game much more enjoyable for regular players. That's my guess. I think my guess is that in my most optimistic translation mind is that he's actually trying to put the focus on the fact that yes, we are selling it, and we understand that you might not like that, but we're selling it because we feel that it's really rich. But two, there's tons of stuff in the game right now that you can get just for playing it. So we feel that it works out. But the way it reads in English right now is just really bad. It's just
The
like
thing is, the event quests aren't challenging. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I'm saying. I think you're right. I think that's actually what you said is probably 100% what he intended to say. But the way it reads is people struggling in the event quests.
to make it
And my
easier to
interpretation from
obtain
that,
content outside of quest is feels really.
I mean, is
that's
it
such a-
easier to spend $20? I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, and
It
again,
sounds
like I want
bad,
to be
yeah.
clear, I'm completely on board. If they can sell $100 of DLC to someone and it makes it so
Yeah.
they want to keep creating content, great. I want there to be Monster Hunter whales that get us more content in the game. I just want it to be content that I want to play, that is challenging, that I can continually to engage in. That's all.
I
That's it.
totally agree, and people have aired some grievances in the fact that we're in the update period we're in now. They seem to be. It comes off wrong that they're focused more on DLC than giving
There's
us
so
event
much of
quests.
it. There
And
is
there should
so
be
much DLC.
there's an imbalance right now, and I would actually totally agree. And I'm not going to. People think I'm an apologist or whatever. Like, and Capcom could do no wrong. Like, I feel the same. Okay, like I'm with you guys 100% of the way here on that one. Like, I think that was the
there's no
wrong
Skinner box.
approach.
So either you're making a new character or you're playing something else. Or you're playing it just to enjoy it because it's fun. And it is a fun game. Like I said, it's mechanically and design for the monster wise in terms of combat, one of the best, if not the best Monster Hunters ever made. There's zero question in my mind. And if there was to be a G rank or master rank version afterwards, I can't see how it wouldn't then be like the definitive version of Monster Hunter until whatever next happens. Assuming the
Yeah.
next version could even surpass it. It's just where
Yeah.
we are right now. We're missing either the challenging event quest because people want to tune in. You know, if you stream the game, like they want to see challenging content. They don't want to see you go in and fight the same monster you have over and over again that isn't that hard to beat and doesn't give anything worth the value. Like there's no,
Yeah.
you know, there's multiple things that makes live streaming entertaining, right? So there's you know, displays of skills, there's tension and challenging content. There's the sense of discovery and excitement when something random or new happens, such as like decorations and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that Rise is lacking or bereft in all of those, but when you could more easily go back to the other games and capture those things more effectively than in a new title is a little disappointing. And I do agree with you both in that, you know, it came from a place of love. Like I think again, it came from a place of we want to, you know, really respect the player's time in terms of being able to put together an armor set that is functional and be able to complete the game with a reasonable level of challenge. It's just like where they are from
I
here.
also and I also feel that it was pretty obvious from the get-go that World and Iceborne was designed with the Western market very much in mind.
Yeah.
The way that Western gamers consume content, both including like streaming, trying to keep it relevant on Twitch, and it worked. I mean, there's no denying it was fantastic.
It's World is beating Rise regularly in viewer metrics.
Yeah, but Rise feels like it was like, okay, let's like ignore like that's they were trying to go all global. Let's just try to dial back to the old days. Let's focus on not necessarily Japan, but let's just focus on what we know, and these are Japanese developers, so Twitch is not a big thing here. Live streaming is slowly catching on a little bit, but it's mainly just YouTuber personalities that you want to watch. It's still not gaming, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah, people watch the VTubers. I mean, and even in live streaming for the most part, you still watch the content creator.
Yeah, but for like the typical Japanese developer or publisher does not have live streaming experience in mind when they're designing their game. That's just a flat out because there's not the culture of it yet here.
And there's also
so
the
it's
thing,
slowly growing though.
A lot of the problems that you mentioned are very specific to live streaming, right? It's like I think for a regular user, there is the whole thing about they don't have that Skinner box. It's just I don't know. It is a problem for streaming for sure. That I can completely agree on because I haven't streamed as much of Rise as I've streamed of World. That is for sure. Because I'm also not chasing
even based
decos.
off the release window. Like compared to the release window, it's night and day. I'm sure you played nothing but World for a year straight.
Yeah, pretty much. But there's also the fact that I had much earlier access to Rise than I did for World. So I came out of the gate with 100 hours already under my belt, pretty much. So
Yeah,
Gaijin and
case
I
is
both started on the
special.
same foot, right? You started release day 2, Gaijin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my case is a little special because I have someone physically in the house who's playing with me. So I think if you have a sibling or you have a father-daughter like me and Yuna, that's very different because for us, she's gotten her 200th all-mother kill. We've killed over 400 Ibushis. Like we're just having tons of fun just goofing around, doing naked runs and stuff like that. So like we're slowly, I would say, slowing down, but we're still playing it every day. And so it's just fun for us to play. So I could see where my situation is not. I'm getting more mileage out of the game, and I've never played. I'll be honest, even as hardcore like fanatical I am about Monster Hunter, I've never played a base game release more than like 500 hours ever. Like it's just the base game party. Like I did not get into the guild quest for Monster Hunter 4, so didn't interest me. It disinterested me. I was very not interested in doing guild quests because I wanted to get the weapon from the monster that it's associated with. I didn't want to get a fire weapon from a Rajang. That makes no sense to me.
It's a little weird.
So
yeah,
I didn't like it, so I didn't do it, and that was fine. And I only played that game for like 400 hours or something like that for base. And then when G came out, man, I went crazy, and it was well over 1,000. Same thing with Generations. I never put that much time, I think, into the base. So for me as a base game, it's on par, even though I was a solo hunter. But I could see where a solo person might be like, kind of like, okay, well, the party's over. And and my advice has always been the same, which is, it's disappointing, but don't try to force it, because that'll make you like me going off about Sony.
Yeah,
like
it'll
if you
be
try
a
to
PS4
force something that
demon, yeah.
you will not you'll start to resent it, and that's not good.
And that's exactly what I did when I started to feel like, again, it's not like I ever disliked Rise, but when it just felt like it was time to move on, I just went on and I started playing other things. And we've hinted about a little bit. I've been playing a tons of Dragon's Dogma, re-experiencing that. I know you did a lot of content on Dragon's Dogma at one point.
God damn, I love that game so much.
It's so funny because out of all three of us, I was the first one to get into Dragon's Dogma. I got into it
you're the
so
one.
hard. Yeah, dude. The second that thing came out, I was like deep into it. I did like, I don't know, 4 or 5 full playthroughs on my channel because I was just like super into it and just like
once it hits, you're like, I got to get in. I got to get back in that game.
Yeah.
But it's like for you, it didn't hit right at the start with Dragon's Dogma.
I hated the Ox Quest. The Ox Quest, I hate that. I don't like that quest.
What is the Ox Quest? Because it's been so long since I last
going
played.
to Grand Soren,
taking
Grand
Hydra in the camp, and you got to spend the 15 minutes walking over to Grand Soren behind an ox.
Oh, yeah.
When you do a speed run, half of the speed run is that quest.
Yeah. It's like
and by the time I got there, I'm like, I'm good. Never mind. I guess I don't want to play this game anymore. It's just not for me.
So the version that you have right now is the version that has the stones, right? That allows you to teleport. Because like the first time that I played it, I did not have
Eternal
lift stones.
Fairy Stone.
Yeah, the Eternal
you have
Fairy
the
Stone.
Eternal Fairy Stone and their base Fairy Stones at Casardis and Grand Soren. Yeah. And then you could find 5 more.
I could not imagine.
Back in my day, I played the whole game without an Eternal Fairy Stone.
So you have to buy your Fairy Stones in the first game, and you only get 1 port crystal in the first game.
I didn't
get 1.
I didn't even knew how to use it, so I just like walked everywhere.
So you must have been like
I went through the whole game just like running.
Yeah, like trying to get back to a town at night when everything can kill you and is out to kill you must be terrifying.
No, because you can't just warp. You get to a point where your character's so powerful that it doesn't matter. You're just like
the overall. You relatively overlevel the overworld pretty quickly. I mean, Bitter Black Island is
especially
the DLC
because I used to farm that the first dragon that you had access to, which is that one that's on the path to that fort somewhere. There's like
on the left side of the
Dread Fort or Black Fort, something like that.
I don't know, but
there was a drake in the forest there.
There's a drake somewhere in there, and I ran into it once. What?
How would you damage him early on?
Not early on. I farmed him later down the line.
Oh, okay. I thought you
Oh.
said you like started off like you were like,
Yeah,
No,
that's what I
no,
thought. I
that's
was like,
Spamming
oh,
Parablast at him.
no, hell no.
Jeez,
Although
Rurikhan
although
breaking
on like
records over
this
here.
on the second save file, I probably could have done that because I had a lot of people that because like at the time I would accept anyone as my friend on PS3, and I had a lot of people that had really really powerful pawns.
Oh, you just
And
had
you
level
could
200 pawns.
you
all
could
over
just
the
like
place.
you
Yeah.
could do that. I didn't do it, but I could have done it to farm that dragon.
how would you be able to? How would you be able to afford it though? Unless you went to Bitter
they're free
Black.
if you're friends.
If they're your friends, it's free.
Oh, it's free to your friends? Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's broken.
And
I
it
did not
was
know that.
and it was hilarious because like I constantly had to like delete items that people would send me in my pawn because I was doing the content. I would tell people, hey, if you want to take my pawn out, take him out. People would take the pawn, deck him out in like mega gear, and then I'd be like, I don't want this. This is gonna break the game for me. Stop. I'd have to like delete the gear to keep the thing like the progression good. It was insane.
Yeah.
But
My
When did you get into Dragon's Dogma, Shepard?
2 weeks ago.
Oh my God. Oh wow. Okay.
3
Ooh.
weeks ago,
gosh.
maybe. So I did one offline playthrough with Mystic Knight, and then my second playthrough that I'm in now, I created an actual like goblin-looking guy, and it's solo assassin only, so like no pawns or anything else like that through Bitter Black. So
Oh wow.
it plays much differently when you're solo than when you have
Yes.
pawns. And you have to use the roll for your iframes, or if you want to be cheesy, you can use the whatever the master kill skill is on, for the assassin. Although you can't do it for magic or ranged, I guess. And it's just a really fun experience. I mean, it really shows the love and appreciation for the real mechanics behind that game. Part of the issue is when you first start out, this is one thing I disagree with. You have to unlock these core skills which increase your combos, but it's like a total of like 600 vocation points. It's ultimately nothing. But if you don't know that those actually make and extend your normal combos, you may not use them. And so like if you're playing as a fighter and you haven't bought those, like your X combo is just like
it's horrible, yeah.
It's just this. But then you buy the extended skills and you find out there's, you can pause and then hit it again and you get an extra combo off, or you can hold Y and things like that really change it and really make even the basic combo, even outside the core skills, interesting. And then you start thinking about, well, what if I started adding jumps in with jumping attacks? And then with Assassin, it's even crazier because you get this skill, which is called Instant Reset, which is from a game design perspective, maybe one of the most broken looking things ever, because you'll be on the ground and instantly you're like, oh, I'm back up. But you can cancel any animation you're doing. And, you're coming from the guy that made Devil May Cry, it kind of makes sense why he would add these things into his game, because these are probably things that he'd like to add into Devil May Cry, but it just doesn't fit necessarily in that theme. But he's like, what if we let you counter every physical attack in the game? No problem. What if we let you instantly cancel any animation you're doing? And in the context of the character, it makes sense and it fits. I would recommend it. I would recommend anyone watching to do a normal solo playthrough, as long as you're not doing like major sorcerer, because that's going to suck really bad. Because you're just going to be watching bars fill up all the time. But fighter or strider, even Mystic Knight or assassin or anything like that, try doing a solo playthrough. You will miss the amazing dialogue. You will miss that goblins are weak to fire and ice both.
Goblins are weak to fire, Risen.
You will miss the fact that wolves hunt in packs.
The Duke can stand to commission some new roads.
Yeah, so you'll miss out on a lot of things, but the experience of it is very fun. Another thing that I try to do is I also try not to use healing items when I'm actively in battle. I try to clear each encounter without like spamming healing and stuff.
Are you playing on hard mode?
I play in normal. My first playthrough I did offline hard with pawns.
Yeah.
But hard mode changes the game in a lot of ways, none of which really necessarily make it better from a design standpoint.
I agree. It's like I just have that friggin' Souls brain of mine. It's like, let's play this on hard. And it's like, it's really hard at the start, and then you make enough money, and then it's really easy the rest of the
Yeah. So you get double experience, you get gold becomes 0 issue.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Like it becomes much
It's still funny to like kill a goblin and then it's just like drops one of those big ass 10,000 bags.
Stack of gold just flows over you.
This goblin was carrying around this huge sack of gold.
So you personally take, only you, not your pawns, you take 5 times damage. Which means for many characters you get 1 shot. For a Mystic Knight, you might take 2 or 3 hits. Which means you'll be healing all the time, which isn't that fun, which is if you want to go through a fight without healing like that all the time, it's a lot harder to do. You over level too quickly. Enemies don't get any increased defense. It's just, it becomes harder to stagger them. So there are a number of moves, like the assassin has a move where if you do a light attack and then you wait and then you hit again, you can do these kicks. Do like a little 4 series roundhouse kick with the daggers. And that has a good amount of stun. And then if they're light enough, you could kick them up in the air. If you're to do that on hard, unless you were stacking like stagger augments, you wouldn't even be able to do that combo effectively. It wouldn't make sense to do.
That's the really cool.
Throw Blasco's burr.
That's another really cool thing about Dragon's Dogma is how your own character's weight and height actually affects gameplay. It affects your ability to grapple other characters and how much you can actually carry and whatnot. I was like, dude, this goes on so many different levels. The one thing that does bother me a little bit is you have to plan your character out in advance. You can't just like, I just feel like playing Dragon's Dogma, I'm just going to jump in. If you want to min-max, no. You have to plan out how many levels am I going to be a mage? How many levels am I going to be a fighter or whatever? Because all of that influences your stats, and it's annoying.
I have a very different stance on this, because this is the thing that I think is unfortunate, is that I was initially put off a little bit because a lot of the comments you see online is, you got to start over. You didn't do your first 10 levels
you don't have to.
Rager. Like people, like if you want to min-max, that's the point here that everyone misses.
Literally min-max.
The game is not like, you could go through and level to 200 as one and go over to sorcerer and still do okay. The end game,
the equipment matters a lot.
Weapons will. So I just don't. I fear that people are going to be off-put hearing, well, you got to care about how you level up, and if you do that, it's like if you want to min-max, and this is a game that rewards you for min-maxing. Like if you want, that's why we do so many playthroughs, is because when you start specializing, oh man, you can break the game in really fun sandbox ways.
But it's one of those things, like if this is your first time playing and you're playing on normal, like level up whatever you want, experiment with whatever classes you want.
Don't even think about it,
Play around with it, and then on your second playthrough, be like, okay, so I'm going to play 10 levels as fighter, then 10 levels as assassin or whatever.
I mean, I would just say, broadly speaking, if you're going to be physical, try to stick to physical. If you're going to be magic, try to stay to magic.
Just choose your weapon.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter. If you did 200 levels as assassin and then you switch to sorcerer, maybe it is time to make a new character. To be honest, let's be real. I mean, come on. But if you got the gear for it, though, I guess it doesn't matter.
The cool thing is, like, when you start seeing some of the meme builds, like you see someone that leveled up, 200 levels as not a mage, but whatever is the advanced, the whichever one of the mages gives you the most magic is a sorcerer.
It would be sorcerer.
Yeah.
So level up as the sorcerer and then swap into Mystic Knight. Now that can be some interesting stuff, because you really get
or Mystic Archer too.
Or Mystic Archer. Yeah, you get a lot of damage out of the spells and whatnot. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, but definitely. I mean,
what platform are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on PC, so I'm able to play it at like 1080 and it locks at 120. And I've got a couple visual mods that I really like. There's a mod that gets rid of a lot of it's like lens flares. I know you both know what I'm talking about. Like it's really harsh.
It's a lot of
low res PNG lens flares like around your lantern. It gets rid of those. So that's one mod. I got rid of a thing that gets rid of the depth of field. So like randomly around the screen, there's just like these black boxes. I have a mod that gets rid of that. And then I have a mod that makes the daylight like a little bit more clear, and then it makes the night and in the caves much darker. So when my lantern goes out, like you can't see crap. Like it's dark.
Yeah, you're almost you're almost doing like auto HDR at that point.
Yeah, no, it's really, really dark, and it gets really scary.
I think the the game does a pretty good job of representing darkness. Like, I don't think I need a
Yeah,
better mod for that.
this makes it a bit darker. Like you'll be fighting. There's this one room in Bitter Black Island. Like no spoilers, but like the ground has a very low layer of water, so you're safe walking around. But if you get knocked over or roll, your lantern's going to go out, and now you're fighting like an ogre and like a a ravager, and you have no light. And so, fortunately, there's a door you could run away and go away, or you can try and put your lantern back on.
Man, the amount of hours I spent in that particular room, just cheese farming death, is just ridiculous. I've spent probably 100 hours in that specific area.
He's almost a little disappointing though as a fight, to be honest with you. He's got 2 moves.
Yeah, he's very basic.
He does a sleep and then he hits with his scythe. I mean, you don't even. I mean, obviously, you could use blast arrows or anything you want to kill him, but as long as you don't get put to sleep, there's almost nothing he can do unless you just stand in front of him when he's cocking back his scythe.
Yeah.
I took 1 life bar off him today. I haven't killed him yet, but I'm trying not to use blast arrows or throw blasts. Or
blast arrow.
It's so funny because
it's the Kelby bow. I love it.
I'm not using it.
That's usually what ends up happening with me at the end of Bitter Black Isle. Because like, oh wait, you haven't gotten to the end of Bitter Black Isle.
I've gotten 1 round clear. I'm working on my 2nd round clear.
Okay, so yeah, we can watch what we say.
Oh right, the second is when
you're in version 2, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
never mind.
Yeah, things get changed up a little bit.
I'm gonna shut up.
Oh, we don't want to give people spoilers anyways, right?
yeah. Play Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah,
and honestly,
really
it's
$9 on Steam. It's $9 right now.
$9, damn.
It was super cheap not that long ago on Switch as well. People kept telling me, "Oh man, it's like 13, whatever."
If you
get it,
if you bought a Switch for Rise and now you're running out of stuff to play, and maybe you're not interested in stories, get Dragon's Dogma. It's so good on the Switch.
It actually runs really well on the Switch as well.
Yeah, I've done now PC, Xbox, and I've done Switch, and I started with Switch. The Switch version is in no way anywhere inferior to any of them. They all run really, really well.
I think you're locking 30, it's fine. And I'm sure it locks 30 on the Switch.
I cannot express how happy I was the first time I saw Gaijin tweet about Dragon's Dogma. I was like, yes! Another
one! A lot
one!
of videos coming out. Like, people are like rediscovering the game constantly now. Like, I'm seeing more and more tweets. It's still like, there's so many fans for that game.
Yep.
And you see why. And like, the craziest thing about it, and we're talking about it a little bit before we started recording, Rurikhan, is like, allegedly, like, this is the game that we got is like 20 to 30% of the content that they had planned for Dragon's Dogma 1.
Yeah.
Like, without getting into any spoilers at all, there's like a castle you go to, and behind the castle, there's a gate. And on the map of the overworld, like when you zoom out, like in the game, there's like this entire half a continent, like grayed out that you never visit. Like, there was going to be stuff there. Like, there was going to be a lot more things, but I think just like the development for Monster Hunter World, Dragon's Dogma was like one of those like Hail Mary swing for the fences games that Capcom was working on development for. And it just ended up like somebody's like, hey, you got to release the game or we're going to go bankrupt. Like, you have to release what you have now.
One of the things that I would have loved to see on Dragon's Dogma, and they did a game about this, but it only came out in Japan or Asian territories or whatever, was I would have loved to see 4-player co-op in Dragon's Dogma. Because it just screams it. It just screams it. I was like,
it would be so broken. It would be so broken. Like, every class is so already broken. Oh, it would be great. Like 4 players in sync doing sorcerer spell syncs over and over again, like nonstop bolides until everybody's stamina was depleted. It'd be broken. It would be, I mean, it'd be fun, but it'd be messed up. So like, that's one of the things. So here's something I'm a little passionate about. It's game preservation and game history, right? So you guys are probably both familiar. Monster Hunter Frontier shut down basically the same month as Dragon's Dogma Online, and close to the time that Monster Hunter Online shut down, which is the Chinese version, online version. Like, where, as fans of both Monster Hunter and Dragon's Dogma, like, what are we supposed to do as fans of these series now that these games have content that is no longer accessible? Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, do you think there's like some data janitor somewhere at Capcom that manages all of this stuff and like these old projects? Like, do you think they still have hard drives filled that could bring these games back online in some way? I mean, obviously, it would not be commercially viable for them to do so in any normal way because they shut it down in the first place. But like, it still
See, you know what?
matters, right?
I have a radical idea, and I'm like you were saying, like from a corporate standpoint, it doesn't make financial sense to try
No
to
sense at
rework
all.
the back end and
Yeah.
re-release it. So
We're not going to
what
see
I
Frontier
thought
released again, right?
what I thought would be cool is, let's say Dragon's Dogma Online or any other company for that matter. They have an online game that went on for many years, and they're like, okay, we're closing it down. We have to because it costs whatever so much, and we have to move on. And do a Kickstarter and say, if you guys want us to make an offline version of this game, it'll
Right.
play however, it'll be a lazy port, but it'll be a offline version. If you fund it, we'll get a small team or we'll outsource it to like a small dev team that'll
We'll give
rework
somebody a
it.
license to work on it.
Yeah, because at that point, it's more fan service than anything. It'll pay for itself if the fans can back it, and just leave it up to the fans and say, if you really loved it, then help us because we can't commercially sell it. I think that would be a cool idea, and I think that fans would fund it, and
So there's
they'd
a
be very
huge
happy.
language barrier between, of course, many fans in the West and these studios in Japan. Like, what do you think their thoughts are? Like, if you walked up to one of them, right? Obviously, the former director for Frontier he's gone now, right? It was Ito, Street Fighter guy. I think he was technically the director of it. He's gone in any case. But you talk to whoever is there. Like, what do you think their thoughts are? Like, what would they even say? Like, would it be a corporate response? Would it be a sympathetic response? Would it be a response to like maybe someday? I think of Nintendo, and if it were a Nintendo property, it'd be no way in hell. But I don't know how
It's
Capcom
I
feels.
think for most people, it would be no way in hell.
Right.
I think no
Because
way in hell, but the thing is, I think there's a difference between the employee and the person. I think as a developer, like as a creator, like these people worked really hard on the game. They would love to see it still be played today. Like there's like no creator is happy that no one is playing their game and their hard work, unless it
it'd
was
be
like ET or something, right? Like something like horrifically bad
it'd
that
be
they're
kind of
embarrassed by.
like
But
it'd be kind of like us being like, "Oh, I'm so happy that YouTube took down my videos or whatever."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Yeah, even if you
so-
had no ad revenue, like, hey, we deleted your channel, you'd be like, oh, that
thanks.
sucks.
but the corporate person doesn't want knows that there's no chance in hell because corporations are dumb here in Japan, especially.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're saying
But
like a Kickstarter could happen, but I'm just saying like realistically, like they'd be like, I don't
No.
even know what sort of response we'd get.
I
Nothing.
think
Well, they don't.
I think that these games should just like whenever you start an online game, I think there should almost be a rule. It's like, listen, you're starting an online game. It's going to be a live service. It's going to be whatever, and eventually, when that live service ends, they should have like some kind of responsibility to preserve that game, to either give the servers away to the server code to users so that if I want to, I can host the server, right, for people, or make a version of the game, like patch the game to be offline. Like what's going to happen, for instance, to Anthem? Because they already said they're not going to do Anthem
Yeah.
2.0. Like, so right now those servers are still up, but eventually EA being, EA, they're going to go like, well, time to shut down the servers, dead game forever. It's like, come on. I actually did enjoy the gameplay that I did of Anthem. I had a great time when I was playing it. Sure, the game had a crap ton of problems, not going to lie. I made a bunch of videos highlighting those problems, but like, it's going to suck when that game disappears forever.
Because you can't play it ever again. There's
If
no
Japanese
offline version.
companies weren't so paranoid about sharing their source code with an outsourced company, because they are
Oh yeah.
in general,
Every company
it's not
is.
like the West where it's like, okay, yeah, let me work with M2 or one of the awesome port companies and let them do it. Like that's rare here in Japan, right? But if that wasn't the case, then I'd almost be interested in doing my own company, start up a company that literally does crowdsource projects, and I go and approach publishers and say, look, I will buy the rights to this and we'll port it and we'll do this, and I will, like there's a small but meaningful business there that could happen.
No, I
But I
mean,
just think
imagine
companies don't want to share their source
HD.
code.
No, but
Yeah, they just
imagine
don't
it,
want to
like,
share source. It's
Yeah.
the corporate secrets. It's their know-how. It's their own. Japan is
there
still
might be a mistake.
they're getting
something in there.
better, but they're obsessed with their own engines and proprietary tools. Where I think the Western development understands that in order to have incredible, huge pipeline development, you just can't make it all yourself.
They share it out, and then
You know?
I mean, most people are using the Unreal Engine or Unity engine anyways. So
Yeah,
they're
so
not.
I don't know. It's sad. I agree with you. It's not right because the game should be celebrated for what they were, and it's a real
Just
shame to
from
see
a
them.
Library of Congress.
I'm never gonna get to play Frontier. I've never played it. This time
It was pretty good. It wasn't perfect. As much as like every time it gets brought up, and there's a person typing out the comment no about Tonfas. The Tonfas were okay, guys. They weren't amazing. They were just okay. The switch axe, there was switch axes in Frontier. Did you know that?
I don't know much
it
about
was
Frontier.
different.
Way better. It had a guard point. How cool is that?
Nice.
A built-in guard point. You'd counter and then you'd like hit twice or something like that. Way more fun than the Tonfas. I never played with the magnet spike. That thing looked like just broken. That looked like the sort of like power creep they released. And I would say, like, based on what I know, based on my own personal experiences of playing Frontier, and some people disagree with me, and obviously, like, this is just my own experience. They just started listening more and more to the people that wanted more and more power creep. Right. So like we talk about Rise now, we talk about there's not enough challenging content, right? And so that's all the way on one end of the spectrum. All the way over here are the people that are like, I need something harder than Extremith. And I need everyone who plays this game to beat something harder than Extremith solo if they want to play it anymore. Like that's the level of where Frontier was getting. And again, you would have like a million armor skills, so it wasn't that bad. But and there's like some grinds. Oh, you'd hate it, Gaijin. There was like you could have like a super version of a weapon specific skill that required you to kill Raviente like something like 10,000 times or something. It had to be like once a day for like 3 years or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
But you'd get a cool skill.
Hey, there's your end game, Chase. There you go. There's a Skinner box.
I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, but I mean,
listen.
wow.
When I read online that one of the trophies for Assassin's Creed 2 was you need to collect 100 something feathers, I was like, well, guess I'm not getting that one.
Checking that off my list. Taking that right off my bucket list. Yeah, no way.
Here's a really random comment, but this is just something that's always disappointed me ever since I discovered the 360 back in the day in online games. Western developers are no. Western developers, this has nothing to do with Xbox, actually. Western developers versus Japanese developers. Western developers in general have some really creative, interesting ideas for achievements. And what has always made me very sad is that Japanese developers don't. Even games like Monster Hunter, like the guild cards and the medals that you can get, they could get so much more creative with those. That would actually give you
shot, right?
Yeah, or like even stuff that would give you your was it Skinner machine or what do you guys say?
Skinner box.
I'm telling you, I
guys
still
like
just have
that.
Hellblade, Hellraiser, and I have flesh being peeled off. That's the only I don't.
Christ.
Skinner box.
Terrifying.
I was just watching a documentary on 80s horror the other day, so that's why.
That's where your mind is.
But so like if they had certain things like okay, defeat Magnamalo with every weapon, stuff like that. That would actually give gameplay to a good amount of people without having to actually create any new content. Like achievements I thought were genius. Like I love the idea of achievements and trophies, and the more creative you get, and it's so sad that Western developers are good at it and Japanese ones are so bad. They're all like make one of every weapon, collect 1,000 this, get 1 million gold. It's just like, okay, where does the Excel spreadsheet end? Okay, do that.
Right.
It's like that's so stupid. Like, come on, man.
No, you're right. No. I do kind of wish that layered armor were given out like randomly. That would have been one way to do it. Like every 5 hunts of a monster, you'd get like a random piece of their armor, including duplicates. So you'd be like,
no,
Royal Ludroth pants again.
Oh God, not Overwatch. Jesus Christ, dude. I wanted to. Oh my God.
I'm not putting loot boxes in the game. I'm just saying.
No, but it's like there's few things worse than getting a duplicate on a random reward.
Fine.
I hated it so much.
That you can then buy the piece with. I don't know.
Okay, that works. That works. Okay. Yeah, currency I can do.
And I'm just thinking, this episode, we're just bringing up trauma from me and Rurikhan and everybody's.
I did look it up. I did spend up to $20 on the first Overwatch loot pack for the Olympic Games, and I regret it. But I have spent money on loot boxes, purely cosmetic loot boxes.
I don't regret it. You want to know why? Because I never bought a single loot box in Overwatch. Screw that noise.
You're better than me. Better than me. I don't know why. It's somewhere in my mind at the point I was in a collector's mentality. I'm like, I'll make sure I'm going to get every single costume. I'm going to get every single unlock.
Dude.
I liked the game for the first season, and then I'm like, this game sucks. I'm not playing this anymore. Sorry, Overwatch fans.
Pretty much. That's pretty much how it went for me. I mean, for me, it was always so disappointing to open up the loot box and be like, oh, here's a sticker. And here's a spray.
Here's a voice line for a character you don't play.
And I'm just like, oh man, why don't you grab all those and like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was frustrating. So I'm curious because I think I've heard somewhere that you're also into Souls. Is that right, or is that not?
Dark
right?
Souls?
Yeah, Souls. No, it's just Souls in general.
Yeah, I mean, I like Souls games. You know, I'm excited for Elden Ring. I'm not sure if that's where that was going or not. I got the Demon Souls.
This is like a crack addict, like asking somebody, "Hey, you like this stuff?" And it's like,
yeah, no. I mean, I'm with Gaijin. I mean, at least I assume his opinion is Bloodborne is the best of all of them, and I think pretty objectively, I can say yes to that.
Dark Souls 1 is the best one.
It's got the best world design. I can't argue with you there. It's got the most perfect egg of a world that has ever existed, with little things that crawl around all inside the egg.
So good.
So I will not argue with there. I mean, I prefer the pace of the combat in Bloodborne. I really loved the Chalice dungeons. I think that was a perfect way to add, you know, as much procedurally generated content as a person could ever want to play around in. Unlike many procedural games where you could see the obvious seams and stitches of like this room to this room, I always felt like the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne had a little bit more of an authentic feel. I think they did a really good job of creating enough unique, weird little rooms and then putting enough unique, weird little guys in each one to make it, even if you'd gone through 20 of them, that they felt okay.
You do know that like not all of them were random.
Yeah, I know some were real. I know some were handcrafted. Yeah, probably the majority of ones that you went into were real because they were required.
All of the mandatory ones to get to the final boss, all of those were actual. Then there was like a suffix at the end of one of them, and that would tell you this one is the one that's randomly generated. I forget which one it is. It's been too long for Bloodborne for me.
Look, I'm not going to claim to know much about them other than they were good. And I like the combat. And my best playthrough was I did a trick weapon one, not a trick weapon one, trick tool weapon one. Basically, it's magic in Bloodborne. Really fun. Really enjoyed it. Didn't use the flamethrower at all, but I used pretty much everything else, like the black sky eye or whatever it was, and just everything. You know, having to match the element. Look, I just like matching element. Okay, that's all I want to do in video games. Is I want you to say, here's a fire, here's a thunder, here's an ice, here's a holy, here's a dark. These things are weak to these things. You hit them with those things when you need to.
Go get them.
I don't know why. That's what I like.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. There's something about it that is insanely satisfying.
You know, it doesn't have to be a huge difference, but it has to be a bit of a difference. Maybe it was like played a lot of Final Fantasy as a kid, and that used to matter a lot more back then than I think it does now. I'm remembering my
it's a zombie. You got to use a fire spell, you know.
Or cast life and they just die instantly. That's cool.
Yeah.
I can't remember any of that really mattering that much in 15. I'm sure things had weaknesses, but I also remember just pushing the square button a lot or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah, make element great again. We can start a new hashtag.
Make elements great again, please. Capcom, fix it.
All games actually. I think this is a game.
Just relevant. Just relevant.
Yeah.
Make elements relevant.
Make poison matter. Okay. Why does poison always suck in so many games?
Poison in Rise, I think, is actually
they actually buffed
good.
it in Rise.
Yeah. Poison is good in Rise.
They buffed.
Yeah.
Well, they did something to it that makes it really good, which is that you can build up the next poison while they're poisoned, which was a great change.
It's very important. Yeah. Yeah. You can keep it up almost the entire time, especially, I mean, if you get really lucky with your Chameleos Greatsword, I mean, it almost never goes away in some monsters. So
yeah,
you got to get lucky though. Got to get lucky on the rage slashes.
Anyway,
I'm with you though. I agree. Yeah, there's something satisfying about matching the element and collecting all of them and feeling that sense of accomplishment and collection and.
I feel
It
like you
feels
work
good.
for something and then you use it. Not just like, okay, I made all these elemental great swords and I guess I'll just use the rampage
Well,
one.
that's where
It has
stories
the
2
highest
is going
weapon.
to scratch that itch for me. It's like
It's got elemental weapons, right?
I'm going to create my own.
Yeah.
Damn it.
There are
You know,
elemental weapons.
I got my ice Sedegios. I was kicking ass with that thing.
Oh man, did you?
That was fun.
By the way, did you guys see the Gunlance animations and stories too?
Oh,
They're
every
good,
animation
but like, is the
stories
weapon
too.
strong enough? I didn't upgrade
No,
it.
the
So,
it's not great at all. It's just
like,
like in
I fully
every
charged up the
monster.
Wyvern Fire. I did like 14 damage to a Banabra. I'm like, oh, sorry to bother you, Banabra.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how Great Sword and Bow are like the two best right now still.
Of course.
I didn't get a
just
single
crazy.
sleep off, Gaijin. I used the Banabra armor. I charged every time, and I shot sleep at least a dozen times, not one sleep.
Good.
What happened?
That's what you
Just
get.
use the rapid shots and you're all good. We don't need anything but the rapid. They're so
But I
powerful. The
didn't.
power
You're
shot
supposed
is
to be able to
ridiculous.
sleep. You're supposed to be able to sleep things. It's a status weapon. No, maybe I'm wrong. I'm the wrong.
Nah. Listen, you just gotta Wyvern Fire things to death. That's how you solve all problems.
But they don't. They take 10 damage.
That,
Yeah,
no,
it
but
doesn't
so
do a
cool.
lot.
You
And
probably-
the Banabra's like.
you
ooh.
probably shot the. Did you shoot at like a monster that is resilient to what's it called?
A
Piercing damage?
Banabra. It was the Banabra.
Banabra should be
on
resilient to
Reach.
nothing.
I don't know. It's like every time I've shot the Wyvern Fire is like over 100 damage. So I don't know.
My weapon just sucked. I was weak. It's fine. It's me. It's a personal problem. It
It
happens.
might-
Okay.
It might be.
They
Then
sell
again,
medicine for it. I'm gonna talk to
I've
my
ver-
doctor.
I very quickly went and I got the Tetsukabra gun lance that was in there. So yeah, it was like get in the Everdens, grind those Everdens out, and get the Tetsukabra gun lance. It's like boom, destroy everything. It's so fun. Friggin' loved it. But those animations are just on another level. There's just something brutally satisfying.
Very good
about
game. I would love to see a
animations
Monster
on
Hunter
that.
in that style, like that art.
See,
style is so
Gaijin,
cool.
this is what I'm talking
Ooh.
about.
Ooh, it's so
I
good.
never said I'd be against it. I just
It's so
I like
good.
how Rise looks.
If it were
I like them
stories.
both.
All right. So I have a platter. I have two choices. You have Rise as it is, and you have Rise done in the stories, art, and animation. Everything else is the same. Which one would you choose?
Stories.
It's easy. It's that you just have to choose one. You can have whatever you want. It's your heart's desire.
It's like I don't think Rise looks bad though. I think
that's
Rise
like
looks amazing.
telling me like who do you love more, your son or your daughter? Like I love them both.
No, you love one
Why
more.
would-
Let's be honest. Come on. That's the lie every parent says. It's not true. Which one?
And they played the same?
They play the same.
Exactly the same. It's just purely a visual change.
I'd
It's your
probably lean a little. I'll lean 1% heavier to stories art style.
That's only because you don't want to hurt like your less favorite child's feelings, and that's okay. That's the nice thing to say. We all understand and respect that. I'm stories 100%.
I love
Stories
the art
100%.
style. It's
Yep.
there's something about
I mean,
it. The
I
high
agree with you. I don't
contrast
think Rise-
colors and
I don't think Rise looks bad. I think Rise looks fine. I really like that story style because it's new, it's fresh, it's colorful. It's cool looking. I mean, they could even have like the blood sprays and Monster Hunt and it wouldn't be like
weird. Yeah.
too violent or too weird. I mean, it would still work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, once it comes to PC, I mean, I could see some very ambitious modders possibly doing something like that. I mean, it'd be a huge project, but at the same time, we've seen
Doing
weirder.
doing world with textures from. I mean, they already have like the characters from Fire Emblem and whatnot in world on PC. So.
Yeah. I mean, you
Can't
got
be that
Thomas the
hard.
Tank Engine; they could do anything. So.
Thomas the Tank.
Thomas the Tank Engine Nerd Gigante mod is one of the hardest and scariest things I've ever done. By the way, you have no idea where his spines are, and then he just kills you. So.
I think one
I
of
still
the
love the Resident Evil ones where like they changed who's it,
That's
Mr.
Thomas.
X or whatever to like Thomas.
You just
the
hear
Tank.
the train engine song as he starts moving.
what you call it? You were saying about the scariest thing. One of the scariest things that I've seen is one that I don't know what monster it is. I forget now, but they transform into like this anime female character. And I was like, that is some nightmare fuel. Her legs are bending in weird ways. I cannot look at this thing. This thing looks atrocious.
I don't know what it is, but it sounds scary.
Yeah, it is.
What game are we
frightened
talking
of most
about?
women,
Monster
including
Hunter
Andrew.
World. Yeah, there's a mod out there that replaces one of the
Oh!
I think it might be Nergigante even.
Mods.
That's a Neko Para one or something
Yeah,
like that.
thing. That
One of
thing
those games.
was scary. It was scary. I
Yeah,
saw.
her
I was like,
animations weren't queued up at all. She's like walking on her back, like, oh! I know what you're talking about now.
I saw that
one
thing and I was
almost
like,
that was almost
Jesus.
scarier than. So everybody liked and loved Thomas when I installed that mod. People did not like that mod.
Yeah, I
including me.
didn't like it either when I saw
For a
it.
second, Rurikhan, I thought you were talking about like something else you'd seen with like a monsters
No.
turning into anime girls, and I'm like, what is he talking about?
I see. I was starting out. I was like, this sounds pretty nice. I don't know what he's
This
talking
sounds
about.
like something
scary.
Gaijin was watching in his horror movie marathon the other day. Holy crap. Jesus Christ.
But anyway, listen, guys. It's like we've been
I'm
going
gonna
on for
apologize.
we've
I
been
did
going
not
on for
mean to
3
talk
hours.
about my Sony feelings for so long. And
Your sleep paralysis demon, the scuffed up back Rathalos edition PS4 Pro hovers over your face at
yeah,
2:30 in the morning and doesn't let you get up. You just have to hear its fan noise get increasingly louder as it fills your eardrums. I understand. We all understand. Thumbs up.
it was the worst possible time to bring it up. But I'm
Thumbs up
I'm
if you
thrilled
like
that I would.
Sony. Thumbs down if PS4 Pro is your sleep paralysis demon. Leave a comment below explaining your decision.
So listen, we'll invite Shepard again, but you can't talk about Sony or
Yes.
Microsoft.
No, I'm game. I'd love to hear about it again. I mean, there's got to be more to that list. I mean, that list cannot end. There's more there.
Yeah, that probably is.
But yeah, guys, we're gonna call it here because it's 3:21 in the morning,
Yeah.
and tomorrow
Oh my
I still
God.
have to wake up to edit this podcast. I mean, I'm not gonna edit that much; just gonna sync the audio. It's all good.
Sync the audio. I've got. Well, please. I punched my mic at one point. Please cut that out. And I mean, my screen freaks out sometimes, but it's not that bad, right?
But yeah, guys, if you guys enjoyed this episode of the Third Fleet podcast, like button. If you did not enjoy it, or if you hate Sony, hit this. I don't know, whatever.
Sleep paralysis demon.
Yeah. Shepard, thank you for coming on. Though I'm a huge fan of yours, and it's been really great talking to you, and I love what you do for the community.
Thank
There's
you.
gonna be
you too, Gaijin.
There's going to be description links to everything Shepard in the description, as well as Gaijin and all of that stuff. Shepard, anything that you would like to shout out, sir?
I mean, I stream at Twitch. I'm probably streaming right now, twitch.tv/SDShepard. Outside of that, that's it. Doing Dogma content, and then your normal Monster Hunter content outside of that whenever things are feeling good.
Okay. We'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe.
And happy hunting on your Xbox.
Dude, Game Pass is so good, though.
Did you guys hear about Game Pass? It's such good value. I forget. There's a meme about that now.
The critically acclaimed.
Yeah,